Good evening to one and all. Thanks for being with us today, and thanks for being here with us today as well. On behalf of BCIC, I welcome you to the day 2 of the Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce Business Leadership Conclave. We'll start off with the panel discussion number 3, Navigating in Difficult Times. I have the pleasure of introducing 3 eminent panelists, Mr. Sanjay Sharma, and then Ms. Vibha Padalkar. So I'll go ahead and then start off introducing Mr. Sanjay Sharma. Mr. Sanjay Sharma is the Chief Executive Officer of MTR Foods Private Limited, with a career spanning of more than 3 decades with organizations like Voltas, Colgate-Palmolive, Dabur, IFCO, and currently he's the CEO of MTR Foods Private Limited. Mr. Sanjay completed his graduation from St. Xavier's, Mumbai, and his master's in business administration from University of Pune. Sanjay is a member of National Food Processing Committee for FICCI and CII. Sanjay is based out of Bangalore. Welcome, Mr. Sanjay.
Thank you.
And I have the pleasure of introducing the second panelist, Ms. Vibha Padalkar, Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of HDFC Life. Ms. Vibha Padalkar has been associated with HDFC Life since August 2008. She is a qualified member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales, and also a member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Prior to her appointment at HDFC Life, she worked in various sectors such as global business process management, global FMCG, and in an international audit firm. Vibha has been a recipient of various awards, which includes the CA Business Leader for Large Corporate, BFSI. She has been facilitated with awards by ET Prime Women Leadership Awards, IMA India, and has been recognized as one of the top 30 most powerful women in business by Business Today for 4 consecutive years. In 2021, Vibha was recognized as one of the most powerful women in business by Fortune International and Fortune India magazines. Welcome, Ms. Padalkar. I have the third panelist, Mr. Sanjeev Sharma. Mr. Sanjeev Sharma is the country head and MD of ABB. Mr. Sanjeev Sharma has been with ABB for about 30 years. He assumed ABB India country managing director role in 2016 January. Prior to that current role, Sanjeev headed ABB Global Business Unit with manufacturing operations in 29 countries in America, Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Asia. Sanjeev is an electrical and telecommunications engineer with management education from IMD Switzerland and INSEAD. Welcome, Mr. Sharma again. Now, I have the pleasure of introducing moderator, Dr. L. Ravindran. Dr. L. Ravindran is the Senior Vice President, BCIC, and also MD and CEO of WealthMax Group of Companies. Dr. Ravindran brings with him over 3 decades of work experience spanning across senior management roles in manufacturing and financial companies of repute in India and abroad. Prior to his entrepreneurial role, he was employed with Zurich Financial Services Group, 20th Century Finance Corporation, GE Alstom. He is an alumnus of St. Xavier College, Calcutta, and IIM Ahmedabad. His doctorate PhD in finance is on management of pension funds in select sectors with analysis on issues and strategies. He writes various columns in economics and finances in leading newspapers, bulletins, journals, etc., and also participates as a lead speaker in various issues of importance. His hobbies include playing golf and wildlife photography. Welcome, Dr. Ravindran. Now I'll hand it over to Dr. Ravindran to be the moderator and then take it over from here. Dr. Ravindran.
Thank you, Niranjan. Good afternoon, audience for the day and respected panelists, Mr. Sanjeev Sharma, Mr. Sanjay Sharma, and Ms. Vibha Padalkar. For those unaware of BCIC, Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, this is a leading chamber based in Karnataka and caters to 850 plus industrial members of large and mid-sized corporates, and now has 45 years of existence, and we're getting in the 46th year. Today is the concluding day of our 2 days program. How we wished we could have met personally, but I suppose that next time is always there. I am Ravindran, you can call me Ravi. Thank you for having accepted our invite and joining us on an early evening on Saturday. I'm reporting to you from the BCIC's headquarters in downtown Bangalore from MG Road. Few of my colleagues have joined me as well, including our president, Mr. K.R. Shekhar, partner Deloitte, Touche and Tomaso. Since all 3 of you are very well versed to handle media, you will find questions from my side to be very light, very specific, and not probing at all, as I consider that this is anyway a weekend and I don't want to disturb you too much, and I do not have the capacity to handle you people all together at one time. This topic of today, managing leadership in turbulent times, is very apt, as the VUCA world is giving us many uncertainties, and COVID is not the last one. But COVID has left imprints and left nations and its citizens in deep despair. Governments did the best. However, as corporate citizens, you were all responsible, including myself, to all stakeholders, and you had carved a role very special for yourself. There could have been many difficult times and moments for yourself. It is possible that you are going through many personal challenges while showing up a brave face. In the context of the same, our discussions for the day unfolds. Please bear with me as I set the rules for the day. Our discussion will have 4 components. The first one will be general questions, which I probably shared, but I'll repeat it for you, spanning about 5 minutes each. And then specific questions pertaining to your industry, the sector or the company that you represent, overlapping matters arising from the earlier part, and then questions from the audience. Audience has the right to post the questions directed with panelist name by choosing the option at the far right on their screen. I would request you as panelists to give examples of your leadership at a personal and corporate level by sharing few metaphors, anecdotes, examples to make it very interesting for our audience. Lastly, please stay back to receive your virtual standardized memento. The personalized memento will reach you at your doorstep this month. So here we go. So I would now request Madam Vibha to take it on. And this is primarily a general question. The general questions will be about 5 minutes each, so about 15 minutes will be spent on that. I think we started late thanks to technology glitch. We're at about 4:15 now, so 5 minutes each on, in your industry, how would you define a stable environment? What is turbulence supposed to be? And how would you classify your organization as having gone through turbulent, if not difficult times in the recent memory? If you are not experienced the situation, then you could as well avoid this question. So these are the 3 matters on which we'll get started. So 5 minutes is what I would request you to do it. And then we'll follow with another 10 to 15 minutes on specific questions and then the audience's questions. And at about 4:50 or so, if I raise my hand, it means that we are nearing the end. And I'm assuring you that 1 minute before 5, I'll let you all go. Thank you very much. Madam Vibha.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ravindran or Ravi, and my co-panelists for being here. Interesting topic, and now, it's like after a massive storm, it feels like we're now sailing towards some level of a peaceful cruising along until the next storm hits us. When I look back over the tumultuous last 2 years, I think no amount of business continuity, planning, disaster recovery, hand on heart, any organization could have said, we got this completely under control. If they did, then I think we would have heard about it by now. Certainly at HDFC Life, while we prided and still do, we pride ourselves in terms of systems and processes. We were hit almost like being under a very large truck, and it happened overnight. So the way we deconstructed as to how things were unfolding every day, and looking back, when we were busy making noises with our utensils and so on, as instructed to all our citizens, we didn't know how long it was going to take. We just thought this is some, rara, and next week, maybe worst case, another fortnight, and we'll be out of it. And yep, the government has got it under control, and so on. In a way, ignorance was bliss, because we didn't know how painful this was going to be. And just when we were going to come out of the first phase, then a Delta variant hit us, and it hit us so badly. And then Omicron was supposed to hit us and did not, fortunately, hit us. So every way we got it wrong. So the way I deconstructed as head of the company was, first of all, for us to preserve. That is number 1. Second is to stabilize. And third is then to research. So this helped us focus as to asking ourselves collectively, which phase are we right now? initially it was overwhelmingly to preserve what we have in terms of our employees. That was number one. Preserve what we had promised to customers and what best we could do under the circumstances. Preserve what we could do in terms of our partners. And this is everything from our financial consultants to the other end of the spectrum, wherein the bigger bank assurance partners and so on. And talking a little bit about that, it meant small things and very large things. Small things were, for example, giving a salary advance, understanding that this lockdown will mean people will have to stock up and so on, without over intellectualizing it about should we do it, should we not do it. Other very bold step, which even today when I've started traveling, people in branches applaud the decision taken by the company is not to have our branches open despite us being under the essential services category. Because, when we're hearing parents talk about their kids, they said, we didn't sign up for our kids to go to war. It feels like a warlike situation. Similarly with partners, especially our agency channel, we never thought that our agency channel will rise to the occasion to embrace digital. Yes, maybe a little bit of a late starter, but boy, how it was embraced. So that was something that was in the research bucket. And then we could do a lot more about it, in terms of technology. The stabilizing meant that, again, with the use of technology, how do we get our branch? So we have about 400 branches. Those people were sitting at home. How do we redeploy them through the use of technology when customer complaints had zoomed? Because it was akin to a run on the bank. Because people wanted their money, people didn't know, is the roof going to cave in, metaphorically speaking, tomorrow? Let me at least get my money out, and so on. So quickly reinventing business models almost on the fly, almost on a daily basis. Another very important aspect was to stabilize as well as to empower, because it was impossible to micromanage and it was actually counterproductive to control it centrally. So we had enabled our teams to take calls, what they were seeing at a grassroots location, and take it and then just circle back to say we have taken this call. That was very important in terms of speed, agility. And in the research bit, it was also dawning on us that amidst all this disaster was also survival of the fittest. And it was a eureka moment that we actually started getting stronger. Our market share actually surged 260 basis points in the midst of the pandemic, because we had our employees with us. We had connected with our partners in whatever form or shape that partners wanted us to service their customers, and we had connected with the customers. And this kind of a connect helped us on the back of digital platform actually emerge stronger than even we had anticipated. And finally, on aspects such as mental health, hand-holding, we had calling available free for the employees and their families, free vaccinations, including with our partners, and so on, more community-led initiatives so that we are active in the community, because the catastrophe was so deep and wide, made us again be well regarded in the communities around us, so that it became easier for us to reopen our business. So yes, I think I will stop here. Having gone through this, there is a sense of emergence from the ashes, somewhat like the Sphinx, to say, okay, if we have survived this and actually come out stronger, not that we want to be cocky about it, but it is almost like bring it on, and we will survive. Over to you, Ravi.
Thank you, Vibha Madam. I would now request Mr. Sanjay Sharma. You represent the foods industry, very large one at that. So if you can kindly give a view about stable environment, turbulence, and whether you really went through some difficult times. How did it appease all of us?
Thank you, Ravi, and thank you, BCIC, for having me here for this conclave. And it's a pleasure to be with two very esteemed panelists out here. When you talk about stable environment, Ravi, I really struggle to actually understand what a stable environment is, because in the FMCG industry, there is nothing known as a stable environment. But still, since you've raised the question, we shall theoretically try and answer that by saying that, yes, a stable environment, let's say what the environment gets affected by, a business environment gets affected by, is really first and foremost the socio-economic factors. I think it's about development and growth of the economy. It is about inflation. It's about interest rates. It's about unemployment. It's about consumer confidence and so many other factors that define what is happening in the social and the economic landscape. The second thing that really defines an environment is really what the industry dynamics are. So that may consist of, how does the competition landscape look like? How does it change? What is the level of competition that you have? What is the kind of innovations that are happening in the category and so on and so forth? As well as, what are the other things that are impacting the industry? So if we are in the food industry, and the food industry is today, really coming of age, and you're starting to see so many different dynamics coming out, starting from, disruptions of startups, disruptions being created by the Zomatos and Swiggies of the world, which has made home delivery of food so easy. All of this has a clear impact on, processed foods. And the third thing that would constitute a third and probably the most important thing that constitutes the environment is really the consumers, and whether they are changing, not changing. We are living in a digital world. How does that impact the consumers and so on and so forth? Having said that, and you can, as I was probably laying out the factors, you would understand that how, and Vibha very succinctly put out, I think there is no company in India who's not gone through turbulence till now, and have not got scarred by it in some manner or the other. Yes, we were fortunate to be defined as a essential commodity, but the definition of essential commodity as defined by the government, from center to state, from state to the various arms of the state, like the police and the health department and so on and so forth, actually differed. Someone would look at us and say, "You're not food. You are processed foods. You are not essential." So we had to fight all the way. But at the same time, I think there were many factors in the government who were extremely supportive of us, and really went out of the way to ensure that we were able to start and continue our business. And in fact, I am very proud of the fact that, and I say this quite a lot, that our total business operations were impacted for just 3 days in the last 2 years that we have gone by, and a lot of the credit for this goes to the government, who has been so proactive. I really applaud the Karnataka government on this. They really were proactive. To the business chambers like yours, chambers like CII, chambers like FICCI, who were right on the ball, helping us interact with the government, as well as bodies like Invest India, who are helping, and the Food Processing Ministry was sitting in the center and coordinating it across multiple states, because we do a large portion of our business, over 50% of our business in Karnataka. So, in our home market, we were up and running very, very fast. But, the other states, there was a huge challenge. The COVID thing actually impacted us in multiple. I don't think there was even a part of my business that was not impacted, and where we did not need some kind of initiative to be put aside. Business continuity was obviously the first thing that was impacted, and as I said, 3 days of lockdown, we managed to secure 900 passes within the first 5 days of from the time Mr. Modi announced. Within 5 days, I had 900 passes in front of me. I had the ability to restart the most important piece of my entire supply chain, which was the factory. I had people who had gone from Bangalore to Mandya and got stuck in Mandya. I had about 350 workers who were stuck in Mandya because they had gone for Ugadi. And then I had to reach out to the government and the police, who were kind enough to help me run buses directly from Bangalore to Mandya and to each village in Mandya, and get the workers back to Bangalore. So a tremendous amount. Without the government, I think we would have not been anywhere. We would have been struggling like everybody else. And we were quick on our feet, and we were up to start doing everything. And the lockdown actually impacted us in every way. The supply chain, obviously, we needed to start off. We were again very fortunate, because we've been doing contingency planning scenarios as a part of our as part of the board exercises that we do, and we had quite a lot of contingency imaginations already in place, but no one had anticipated something like COVID, and we were further fortunate by the fact that us 50% of our sales are in Karnataka, and almost 60% of our raw materials were sourced out of Karnataka. So we were to deal with only one government, at the end of the day, to get at least 50% of our business up and running. But then we had sourcing arrangements in places like Indore and Kota and Ahmedabad and Guntur and so many other places from where we had to source materials to come into our places, into our factories. And out there, it was not the government, but the partnerships that we had built up with our suppliers, who actually went out of their way. We were prioritized as a company over other companies to ensure that supplies would be, factories would be open, processing would be done, and supplies would hit our factories so that we could further do the value addition that we were doing in our factories. We were able to organize trucks, move our materials, and then the most important part of our business, which is really the front end of the business, where the sales happen, had to be completely reimagined. In FMCG food business, we have to go to over 500,000 outlets in terms of distribution, and all this distribution was physical in nature. And here we had to actually do all this. It almost went from a contact sport to a contactless sport. And you had to do all the redistribution through telephones and through a non-contact mediums like WhatsApp messages and so on. So a lot of business process innovations were put in place at that point of time at an extremely rapid pace over the 6 months period that in the first wave. And all of those good efforts have actually helped us really come out and continue to grow as a company. We are very, very proud of the fact that how our employees worked during this time. We were, as you know, that we are a company which is owned by a European principal. Because they were in Europe, we got to know about the situation at least 10 days before Mr. Modi could announce it in India. And we had already begun our preparations on all this. So we really helped us manage the situation very well and phenomenally well in terms of our ability to come out strong out of the turbulent times that we saw. I mean, I can go on, Ravi, but I just want, in the interest of time, I'm just trying to bridge my answer out there for you.
Ravi, you are mute. Ravi, you are on mute. Ravi, you are on mute.
I'm sorry. So, sir, thank you very much. We'll certainly have a private chat one of these days because you're also based in Bangalore as me. Now I go to Sanjeev Sharma Saab. You are in 4 customer focus areas, as I understand: electrification, process automation, motion, robotics, and discrete automation. How do you think you have managed the situations, considering whether the businesses that you have been involved is something which is more industrial than consumer? And how often do you come across turbulence, and whether at all you face a stable environment anytime? Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ravi, and thank you, panelists, for sharing some very good insights. I think it, of course, and of course the chamber. You see, as we have been trained in our careers, we always have a tendency to look forward. And I think this Saturday session, you're making us jog our memories backward, which all of us know are not so pleasant. But at the same time, I think I'll just pick up some key highlights from that period. So as a company, we are more industry and utility oriented, more industry than utility. And it's a business, B2B business. And we work with companies which are critical in terms of infrastructure and also in terms of deliveries to societies, be it the oil and gas company, petrochemical, pharmaceuticals, pulp and paper, steel, and many other process industries which are key to key to how the society runs. And since we are manufacturing and delivering technology to these companies for last 70 years, so it means we have a lot of installed base. So it means our customers have a lot of dependency on our service engineers. And also we continue to deliver on a regular basis and participate in the future projects. So when we had these moments of pandemic, and as Ms. Padalkar and Mr. Sharma said, nobody trains you for these kind of activities because the last pandemic happened almost 100 years ago. So what you had to do is to really go as you see things and then you adapt. So as far as company is concerned, I think what we started, we had 2 or 3 principles that we adopted very quickly when we knew what we are walking into and the lockdowns were occurring. We said that, listen, the business is not a priority. Our employees' health and their safety is the priority. And I think that was a message we sent very, very quickly. So that if the employee feels that they are not safe in their environment, whether it is home, whether it is factory, or whether it is customer site or travel, if it is enforced upon them, they have a right to say no. I think, and while they do that, they had the groups they can consult. We had set up the groups at the country level as well as at the location level, because we have multiple locations in Nashik, Vadodara, Faridabad, Bangalore, multiple sites in Bangalore. So with that, what happens is that the employees were at a calm that the company is not going to push them into harm's way. So it means they could find a space wherein they can do what they need to do. And the second principle we said, listen, there are a lot of customers out there who are dependent on us. And because of those customers, there are a lot of other citizens who are dependent on us. We need to do everything possible that those customers don't get affected. And then comes the products and technologies, so that we keep on warehouses or factories open so that we can deliver, so that the process and other things can run. But this kind of a message somehow helped us. And we found that the most of our employees, they took ownership of doing their part of the job, irrespective of where they were, whether they were in their hometown, whether they were in their homes. And suddenly the new technologies and new mindsets started emerging. And that is something I like to share with you, both on the customer side as well as on our side. For a long period of time, we have been investing on the digital technologies that we can serve our customers remotely. But our customers were not taking it up. They've always wanted our service engineers or experts to visit their site, work with them hands-on, and then the work should be carried out. But because of this enforced scenario, digital technologies came forward. We started commissioning the client's projects, whether it's a refinery project in Northeast. So 4 engineers sitting in their respective apartments, they help client commission the part of the project of the refinery from there. We had in a food and beverage industry in Ahmedabad, a robotics project going on, which was under commissioning. Our service engineers were due to travel, but the restrictions came. But sitting in Bangalore, Pune, our engineers got together. They helped the client to commission it using the digital technologies. So what I felt was there was not a single instance where we could not serve our customer. And there was not a single instance wherein we had to insist a client, an employee has to kind of expose themselves and go and visit the customer sites. In some cases, employees, after consulting our security teams, they decided that yes, it is critical for them to do a small travel distance. We sanitized their movement, and then they could move about. And I felt that as the wave 1, wave 2, and as we started participating in vaccination programs, we took care of the families. We made sure all family members got vaccinated. And I think we really created a social net around our families. We had the lines available with third-party players. If anybody is feeling stress, mental stress, whether because of children or working from home, they could dial those numbers and talk it out. So we created an ecosystem wherein employees felt self-supported. And also we had every Friday, we had a communication not only with employees, but also with our family members of employees, telling them what we know and how they need to act so that they prevent a disease or infection to themselves as well as to the communities they're living in. I think that ecosystem building helped us. And what we found post that period, I'm not dwell on that, post that period, what has happened is the customer loyalty towards our products and services has increased, because during those tough periods, we didn't leave the customer's hand. And that is something we felt that whenever the lockdowns opened up, the amount of trust our customers showed, both in terms of buying products, solutions digitally without asking us to come there, plus also giving us cash, on time, all the time. I think these were the few things which we really experienced, and we felt that is something which was a kind of a payback in terms of how our teams acted and behaved with the customers during that period. So that would be, I think, that period, Ravi. And in terms of turbulence, I think the turbulence typically in the business comes from different directions. And I think India is quite a resilient place in terms of people, in terms of customers, as well as our employees. If you're overexposed to certain market segments which are cyclic in nature, then you feel more turbulent than the others. But in our case, what we run is we run about 18 distinct divisions which have own proposition, and we are exposed to 23 market segments. So these market segments, as they go up and down, we are naturally hedged to not to get a very dramatic event in our balance sheets. So I think that we sail through these turbulences quite easily in terms of our balance sheet and in terms of the numbers that come. And India being quite a resilient society and economy, I think you don't get those kind of events too often. Only during the time of pandemic, when we had the first lockdown in March, I got together with my CFO and others. We felt that how long will that cash last? Because we didn't know how long this lockdown will last. Because we had committed, we'll keep the fixed cost running. We will not fire any contractors or anybody, because that was not the time to drop the cost, wherein the people get affected and their families get affected. I think we didn't do that. We said how to take care of the discretionary cost, which is non-essential. So we really did a very strong combing operation, and we looked into all the discretionary costs which we can do without, and we purged that out very quickly, so that and employees also participated and they understood that we need to do that, but we didn't allow anybody's family or a livelihood to get affected just because we had the uncertainty in front of it. So I think that's how we handled it during this period. And of course, there are many areas we lost some colleagues due to pandemic, especially in wave 2. That reminds us that we could not do enough, irrespective of how the balance sheet looks like, which is much stronger. Our books are much stronger. Our markets are much stronger, but nothing we can do to get those people we lost, and we could not prevent that. Yeah.
Thank you. So one thing that is coming out very clear amongst the three of you panelists is that employees, the safety, their upkeep. The second part of it is the digitization innovation that is crept into the system. The third is that managing the value chain, including the suppliers and all of that. I think this is something which is a common element in this. Now, coming to the present, Mr. Sanjeev Sharma, I would want to ask you, looking at the Russia-Ukraine tensions itself, do you consider this as an uncertain environment, or an environment which is just uncertain but temporary? How is it likely to impact a global organization and an Indian subsidiary?
I think if there is no uncertainty in the business, I think then it is too good to be true. I think that's what we believe in. I think if there are no uncertainties, or there's something going wrong somewhere, or which is about to hit us somewhere. So I think there is a mix of uncertainty, whether it's a geopolitics, a supply chain, it is currencies, or it is recession. I think one has to factor in how your playbook should be for the business. But to your specific question about this geopolitics, I think our in India, as I said, we are manufacturing for the last 70 years. All our products are highly localized. In that sense, we have put our supply chains here. We get some critical components out of Europe and some other countries. So as such, there were no supply chains sitting in Ukraine or Russia for us. That was more of a kind of a demand market for us. So that's not get affected. it has a slightly positive impact because what happened, whatever supplies were going into Ukraine and Russia, those got stopped because of this. So these so-called bit of a supply issues we had in certain product lines, that has eased out during this period of time because the availability of the components which go into final assemblies have eased out in fact. So, but that's one. But nobody can deny the tragic events which are happening in Ukraine, wherein our company, along with the European CEOs, have taken a very clear position that we are halting, and we have the position taken, which is kind of a generally communicated rule. So right now, we are ensuring that our employees in those two countries are well taken care of. But at the same time, we are not able to kind of mobilize ourselves till these things lifted up, and there's a consensus among the countries and CEOs how to operate during this period of time. So this uncertainty, nobody knows how long it will take, but looks like when it finds its solution, I think more we need to worry about is the interest rates rising in US, as well as potential of interest rates that may rise in our economy, whether it will have an impact on the demand side. Right now we have supply problems, but I think if we raise interest rates and if some recessionary trends come, that starts hitting the demand side. So that's something I think we'll have to deal with as we go forward.
Thank you, Sanjay Saab. Madam Viba, now I have a question with my limited understanding on life insurance, to be specific, and considering that uncertain times, not only COVID, but even this Russia-Ukraine kind of war kind of crisis and whatever is happening in the neighborhood, I'm sure the reinsurance, the underwriting, the claim settlement, all of this has undergone some rapid transformation. I'm not too sure about it. Can you please tell us what is the kind of resilience that HDFC Life has brought in terms of undergoing these necessary changes?
So point number one here is that existing base business before the pandemic hit, we were known to be conservative in our reserving approach. Because insurance, as you very well know, is a long tail business. If I sell a bar of soap, I've sold a bar of soap today, and that's it. There's nothing further to be given or received from the customer, distributors, and so on. While here you're talking about 10, 15, 20 years. And so everything depends on actuarial assumptions and how close one is trending towards actuarial assumptions. So some level of conservatism helped us, because when we were hit with the pandemic, we knew that we weren't already under water because we weren't completely honest with ourselves in terms of mortality and other trends that were emerging. Second is honesty. That first honesty to ourselves and then externally, especially to shareholders, to media. We were the first ones to say, guys, this is not looking good. We are getting anything between 6 times to 10 times the normal claims. If my normal claims that I process every day is 60, today I'm getting 600. And it's almost like an avalanche of claims that are coming through. And there was a lag also to it. But we said that there is no, if India Inc. is witnessing this kind of death, especially in Delta variant, then why would insurers also not see similar kind of a trend? Yes, some categories or profiles, you might be in that profile, not be, but I think Delta variant did not spare, across the spectrum. So that was the second level of honesty, and also to then beginning to say that, we're seeing this and we are not going to hesitate shoring up our reserves. So we did that preemptively. Third is that to partner with reinsurers. So reinsurers started panicking also because they were carrying doing the heavy lifting because of the claims. Ultimately, it is reinsured to them. Companies retain something and reinsure the rest. So collectively or anecdotally, I hear that they suffered about 5,000 crores of claims over and above normal claims, just between 2 or 3 reinsurers. So it was again expected, and our own honesty to say that this is going to happen, they are also going to panic. So how do we partner in all of this rather than saying, no, this is mine or this is yours? Because they provide the line of supply to us, if you like, against which we write business. Further is that we also took some bold steps not to increase the size of the problem. Again, there's always a temptation to say, okay, reinsurers being a pain because they're asking us to get, COVID declaration. If someone's recovered from COVID, to wait for 3-4 years and 3-4 months and so on. Either we could hide it or we could partner. So we decided, as always, to partner and to see merit in it, engage with reinsurers, engage with pharma to say that what is long COVID? Why are they asking this? Because of even after recovery, lung impairment, for example, joint pain, those sorts of things have, started increasing. And the fact that we'll know the impact only a few years down the line. So we did that part also. However, we were very, very clear that this is something that is hand in glove with a pandemic. It would have been very naive to think that we'll come out smelling like roses, despite having a pandemic. That was not going to happen. So we had to drop our profitability, and we adequately explained to the street also that our core profitability was nothing wrong. But we settled in 9 months 3 lakh lives. So that is not a small number. We paid out claims, gross claims of about 6,000 crores, net of reinsurers about 4,000 crores, and so on. So all of that means that it would have impacted, and exactly that. Our conservative level of provisioning meant that at the end of even the Q3, when Omicron variant was there, and anecdotally we were understanding that the Omicron variant was not as or nowhere as severe as Delta. Even then, we decided to carry it forth in Q4 because we didn't know whether there's a long tail of it. Down the line, there are going to be some emerging discoveries of how Omicron is going to impact people and so on. So it is a multi-pronged approach that helped us. And most important is that if we are writing 20-30-year business for every policy holder, then I think we just took a deep breath to say, let's take that long-term view even for claims, rather than panicking and exiting and really saying, let's pull out of this business and so on. So I think it's a combination of all of those factors.
Very well explained, madam. Thank you very much. Now we'll go into some very crisp answers to be sought from each one of you, and the same repeat questions. Now, if you can give me 3 difficult or 3 tough decisions that you took during COVID. 3 tough decisions, you can just name them. I'm sorry, I think I surprised you. Anyone can go first.
I'll go first. One very difficult decision was for us to not open our branches.
Okay.
Very, very difficult.
Okay.
So that was one, we did that. Second, again, difficult decision was for us to continue to underwrite business rather than completely go slow. To completely withdraw into a shell to say, sorry, it's just too volatile and I'm just not going to. Like I mentioned, our market share actually grew against the backdrop of the pandemic. And third, I would say is that to continue to invest, because, we had to, the show had to go on. So we could say, let us just freeze, let us just go into survival mode, let us conserve capital. We don't know how bad it is, but no, we continue to invest.
Thank you. Our President of the Shaker has raised his hand, but I'll come to him after this question is answered with the other panelists. Sanjeev Saab or Sanjay Saab, any one of you, even one difficult or tough decision that you took, that is good enough. Was it necessary, first of all, to take a tough decision?
I'll go, Sanjeev. You get a little bit more time to think about this, but frankly, you asked me that question. We took so many decisions. I don't know which ones were tough, but we just took them. We did not know the consequence of our decision at that point of time. But
okay.
I think the intent was really to let the show go on. Whether it was as Vibha said, moving people home. We were also used to working from office. Luckily for us, we had 9 months ago invested in Microsoft Office 365. And then it was just a matter of enabling every employee and putting them on the line. And then really, I think we as we went along, we just kept taking decisions. So when you ask me tough decisions, I think the managing this entire thing was a tough decision, and there was a series of tough decisions that you took, and because you never knew the outcome of these decisions, so we just kept on going. I think that was really the spirit in which we completely ran the company.
Thank you, Sanjeev Saab. Sanjeev Saab, if you would like to add anything, we have exactly about 6 minutes to close the session as promised by me, 4:59 to be precise. So the last one is coming up. Before that, Sanjeev Saab, if you can.
Yeah, I think typically you don't, the way our mindset is, we don't classify it as a kind of difficult decision. It's more like, say, you get a situation you're in your hand, and then you put the best heads together, and you listen in, and you listen for different opinions, and you choose one collective view how to go forward with it. And that's how you do it in so-called normal times, or that's something you continue to do also during the so-called challenge time. So there are numerous occasions. I think one was that we had about 90 employees who were traveling across the globe, and they were really stuck in Italy, Germany, Africa, and many places. And we really had to keep their morale up. So our doctors and our security chiefs were calling them multiple times during the day, and we had opened a line on WhatsApp. We grouped them, and really bringing their families, calming their nerves, as well as finding a safe passage back to their country and towards family. I think that was one which stands out. Second was about when we were kind of working in our factories, etc. I think we need to also assure our employees that yes, it's a safe place, and we did work in such a way that our factories were a safer place than their homes. So that's the kind of environment we had to create, so that there's a confidence in the people that they can do it. And the third one was, of course, with respect to customers, wherein the customers were very nervous. And what we did, we made all of us are available to the customers, so that at any time they have any difficulty reaching out to somebody, so how to reach us. So we had to quickly organize it. So I won't call it as a difficult thing, but more of new situations we had to handle differently.
Thank you, Sanjeev Saab. And before we conclude the session, I have one question, which is how your organization is likely to unleash its best for the year 2025 and beyond. So that is exactly the topic. If you can delve on that for 1 minute. But before that, I want our president, Mr. K.R. Shekhar, he has raised his hand. Sir, if you can kindly go. We have just about 4 minutes remaining to close.
No, my question to all the three is very simple. We talked about the challenges, we talked about the difficult decisions, but somewhere it also given an opportunity for all businesses. And the Russia-Ukraine also has created a challenge on the food crisis. So probably, and similarly, the COVID opened up the infrastructure spent by the government. So it gives an opportunity for an organ like ABB. And similarly, thanks to the uncertainties, the insurance coverage and the financial insurance side, I'm not talking the financial, the insurance coverage also got expanded. So it gives an opportunity for all the three businesses, grow in three different fields. It gives an opportunity for the businesses. So we talked about the challenges. I just want to take 2 minutes time of each of you, or 1 minute time. How do you see the opportunities in the days to come? That's what I just want to put it, Ravi. Sanjay, you want to go ahead, Sanjay?
Yeah, I can go ahead on this. I think what COVID did really expanded opportunities for us in two clear spheres. I think the first one was really from a consumer demand perspective. Because of COVID, especially in the first wave, we saw the suspicions toward, basically there was a heightened awareness towards eating safe food that came up, and processed food was termed as safe food. People did not really feel safe enough to continue their current habits of ordering in, and we saw a huge growth in penetration as far as processed food is concerned. I think that's a big opportunity there for the industry, because the industry has been growing at a linear rate of penetration for a very, very long time. And with such a scenario, we saw that people's dependence, because the homemaker suddenly had to cook 3.5 to 4 meals in a day, and to process everything from scratch up was becoming a challenge for her because everyone was at home. And therefore the dependence on convenience foods and processed foods actually went up, and which gave us the opportunity of many of the consumers to try our products. And I think what has happened overall is it's increased the penetration of processed foods in the market, and therefore people have tried processed foods and many of them have actually continued to use them. So there has been an expansion as far as consumer base for us is concerned on this.
Thank you, Sanjay. Vibha, do you think was an opportunity, Vibha, from insurance business side before I go to Sanjeev?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the fintech revolution started, and also see the middle class Indian, largely our customer base, used to hesitate while they might have small outgoings when they're booking a movie or buying some groceries. But typically financial services products of larger ticket, our average ticket size is about between 80,000 to a lakh of rupees. That inflection point started happening. Willingness to engage non-face-to-face, that also happened. These two aspects meant it had completely opened the floodgates in terms of how we are able to connect with customers. InsurTech, Meditech, we've made giant strides in that space, as against, largely tinkering around, if I may use that word. We wanted to, but there were just a lot of excuses given, mostly in our mind, that Indian public will not do this, or the medical fraternity will not embrace this, and so all of that now is history. So it has opened I'll give you one example. Earlier people had to go in for to get their CTMT done, treadmill test. Today we have solved for it, wherein we have a small stepper where the technician goes with 9 nodes, puts it, there's a remote doctor, he is able to read the ECG, he's able to monitor as if he was doing a treadmill test in a hospital, and we can have an answer. We had that idea in our mind. At least I thought it would have taken 7-8 years, long after I'm gone as the MD CEO, that we'll get an answer to this. And today we have the answer. So various such examples. What's happened in UPI, the entire payments revolution, and how we are able to triangulate data from the Sybils of this world, and so account aggregators, the birth of account aggregators. So much is happening. RBI just launched the entire concept paper on digital banking. So we're moving at a phenomenal pace. I was in the US a couple of months ago, and I really believe, despite the complexity that India is, US banking is way behind than what we have today in Indian banking and financial services. So really, suddenly it has become, now the constraint is only in our minds. I think the agility is really what might hold us back, but no longer the opportunity of how we can unleash this power of technology along with financial services, I think is a phenomenal. And last point is on talent, wherein again, we never thought that this remote work from home. So that also, so my talent pool has suddenly widened, and we're agnostic where the person wants to sit and work.
Thank you, Vibha. Sanjeev, from your perspective, infra, there's a huge demand for the infra in the country and the world. So just from your perspective, Sanjeev, the opportunities.
So I think let's acknowledge that last 2 years and a little more of 2 years have fundamentally changed something inside ourselves. I think maybe we may have to reflect and see what that is, but everybody feels that something has changed within ourselves, also in our employees and also among our customers. There's a new way to engage, a new way to do business. And I find that between the customers as well as us, the more trust has been created. And I think that is something we will reap benefits as we go forward. The agility of the business to happen will increase. That's one positive outcome I see, and I can feel it. In terms of where our exposure is, I would say we are in 23 market segments. All of them, about 5 of them are above 15% growth. About 10 of them are about 10 to 15% growth. And there are capex oriented ones which are in the bottom of the table, which is under 10%, and they're about to, start the cycle. So I see quite a bit of market-led growth coming our way, and we feel it in our books as well as in our inquiries and engagement. So that's quite positive, and let's hope that continues and stays robust as going forward. And digital is another one, as the panelists also mentioned, is something which is really adding more productivity and efficiencies, and more both sides, customer side and our employee side, have been facing it. The last point I would say would be about the geopolitics of global. It's a net positive for India, given how different established players and supply chains have shaken up, and which are the corners of the world which world will trust more. I think there is an opportunity there for the country. At least within our own environment, we see more and more understanding of what India can deliver to the global supply chain. More we organize ourselves here, and those companies who are already organized, I think they'll tend to benefit more.
Because sir, I'll take it over now.
Sure, please, Ravi, go ahead.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I think I have failed in my duties to complete the session 1 minute before. So having stayed back, I must tell you that we have more than 290 odd participants. You may not be getting to see it on the panel. They have come through a different interactive link. So that is the kind of interest that people have shown to this panel, and for the rest of the evening, 3 more hours. Thank you very much for joining. But before you please go away, we have the mementos to be displayed virtually, and they will be sent to your home or to your office very shortly during this month. So thank you very much, and wishing you the very best. Thank you for having joined us today, and a great week ahead. Thank you very much.
Good evening, participants. We had a great session chaired by top-notch CEOs, Vibha, Sanjeev Sharma and Sanjeev Verma from ABB, HDFC and MTR, talked about the 3 different industries. Now the next session is on transformation and transition. While we have seen the CEOs who talked about it, now we are going to talk about the agents of transformation, I would call. People who are here as a panelist are the agents of transformation right from 1990s. They have seen the crisis, they have seen the opportunities, and they are the people who are the first people in India who took their company to the US Stock Exchange and raised the money in the market. They are the people who prove to the world that CFOs are beyond the finance and accounting. They are just not finance and accounting. They are the people who prove that CFOs are beyond finance and accounting. Ladies and gentlemen, we have great pleasure in having TV Mohandas Pai, who needs no introduction to the Bangalore team. Suresh Senapati, again, he needs no introduction to the Bangalore team. And Mr. Jatin Dalal, the CFO of Wipro Limited. We have great pleasure in introducing to them to this conclave. It is customary for me to introduce all the 3 panelists, and I can keep talking about them for hours together, but considering the fact that I don't have the time, I just restrict myself to 2 seconds. Mohandas Pai, as you all know, is a versatile personality. He can talk about finance and economics and religion at the same level. He's the chairman of Manipal Global Education Trust. Manipal Global Education, the first CFO in India who took the Indian company to the IPO. Thank you, Mohan, for being here. Thanks a lot, Mohan.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next person, Mr. Suresh Senapati. Man has got the highest credit of converting a company with a diversified interest, business interest, to an IT giant. And again, he was a person who again took the company into a US IPO, listed following, I do not know whether it followed Infosys or it was both together and Infosys was ahead, that's all. But both the companies were credited because they're the first companies in India to be listed outside India and raising the money in the market. Today, we are talking about a capital market, which is all of us seeing multiple exchanges going up and down. But we have Suresh Senapati, who not only took the company into IPO, after his retirement, he's been a board of many companies and advising the companies on various companies. Thank you, Mr. Suresh, for joining this call today.
My pleasure.
And we have Mr. Jatin Dalal, who is, I would not call stepped into shoes of Suresh Senapati, but who became a CFO, succeeding Mr. Suresh Senapati, and what I would call a transitioning from the old order to the new order. And again, Mr. Jatin Dalal has been an eloquent personality and he has been a great supporter of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce. And I should admit here that Wipro became a life member of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce in this period. Thank you, Mr. Jatin, for being a great supporter of BCIC and look forward to interacting with you. Thanks a lot. So let me just go to the questions first. I'm keeping a very simple agenda, very simple questions. Mohan, I'm just starting with you first. You have been a great transformation agent. You are the person who started the thinking of company going into IPO outside India. And at that point of time, nobody knows what is IT services company. So I've been talking about 1997. So what are the two challenges that you had when you're taking the company to the IPO, US IPO? And how do you see the market in the present day when compared to the earlier period and present period? Mohan, I just want to take it from you, Mohan.
Shekhar, thank you for inviting both me, Senapati, and Jatin. I think we have the unique distinction of being the first companies from India to be listed on the NASDAQ and the NYSE. It was done at a time when the current generation of people who want to go there have forgotten what it was. It was the India of the late 90s and early 2000s, very different India from the India of today, much smaller economy. Now, the biggest challenge for us was to sell India. You know, nobody knew that India had technology companies. Nobody knew that India had a vibrant capital market and India had good companies. They all thought India was very primitive, India was far away, and Indians could not do business. There was racism in immigration, racism in many areas where we went. We were treated shabbily for many years. You know, it was a tough battle to sell India. And after selling India, selling the fact that we had an IT service company which catered to the global markets. And we delivered at quality levels not seen in the global markets for long. We had the best quality standards in the world. We had the best of people who could go and work there and here and deliver. We had the offshore delivery model. We had built a robust risk management framework. And they were all scared that the software was being done from a faraway country. And the third is, they all wonder, could we follow something like US GAAP and other standards? Now, we demonstrated to them that we were on par or better than the best companies in the world. Because all of us in Bangalore, Suresh, I, Bala, you know, Jatin, Ranga, you know, and very many, Rajiv Bansal, etc., very many of us, we had an abiding passion to be the best in the world. Narayana used to tell us, you may not be the largest, but you can be the best. Because to be the largest is a matter of size. To be the best is what you can do. And we are motivated to be the best. So in every facet of work, we wanted to be the best. We set standards in investor disclosure, in accounting, in financial statements, in investor protection. We set standards in quarterly reporting. We all published accounts in the GAAP of 6-7 countries before going to US GAAP. We proved that US GAAP is no big deal. It can be done easily. It's not something that only US companies can do. And it's not a miracle for a company from India to do US GAAP. And we had great investor relations. Suresh and I used to meet hundreds of investors all around the world. We went to investors meet together. And it was, we were rivals. Yes, we are competitors and we are rivals, but we were friends. We used to meet often. We used to share views. We used to ring up each other and ask for views regarding material. And I must tell you, Shekhar, Suresh and I and Bala, and I'm sure Jatin, were part of a generation where the CFO could do accounting, knew the company law, knew taxation, knew US GAAP, knew other technology and all other facets. And we only went to experts like you on the big 4 or whatever, big 5 or big 6, only to seek an expert opinion, not to get the work done. I'm sure you understand that very well, because we all felt we have to be experts and we can't depend on others. And when we go to the board, we must tell our board that this is our view, we study the matter, this is a view. We also consulted experts and their view is this. It is very rarely that we had a difference. And since we had studied the matter ourselves and decided that this is the way to go, and to be very careful, we had to get expert advice from outside. It is a very collegial system of working together. We help improve the quality of consultants like you, because, you know, we could argue with you. course, you had possibly a better exposure because we had very narrow exposure. You had a better exposure, but we could argue with you. And we are told many times by many of the people who came and spoke to us that they prepared very well to meet us because we could ask any questions. And the reason was very simple, Shekhar. We all grew up at a time of controls when we had to be experts in many things. And our careers took off at a time of economic liberalization and globalization and technology. Our companies were global companies. Even though we are headquartered in India, revenue from India was only 2 to 3% or 4%. Most of our revenue is from outside, and we all earn in convertible currency. We have to deal with foreign exchange. We have to deal with RBI. We have to deal with SEBI. I remember for the ADR, all of us used to go and educate them what an ADR is after getting educated ourselves. First, what is an ADR? How do we do an ADR? How do we listing, etc. So for us, these were the challenges to transform. And currently today, the market is buoyant, the market is available, expertise is available, the system is very supporting, the system is not hostile, and I think it's much easier for companies. But my personal view is the companies that want to go IPO in the US are not following the best standards. I don't see the same drive in them and the passion to be the best in the world. They're taking many things for granted. They're not looking at the future. I do hope they look at it. You see in these IPOs of startups in the markets, many of them have failed because they were very greedy. They wanted the highest valuation. They forgot that listing is a strategic process. For both Suresh and me, and Infosys and Wipro, listing was strategic, not to raise capital, because we could get capital, not to raise capital because they did not need the money. I'm sure for both of us, whatever money we raise from listing, the cash is still sitting in the balance sheet. And I'm sure Jatin, counts it every quarter end when he discloses how much cash is there. We have not spent the cash we ever raised from the market. But the fact remains, we listed because we wanted to be listed in a market where our main business was. We wanted to be listed in the market to create a currency for acquisition. We wanted to be listed in the market where we could give dollar stock options to people to hide us. And we wanted to enhance the confidence of our customers in us. And that's why the overseas listing took place. It was strategic and we built our companies organically. So I'll stop here, because I'm sure Suresh will add his wisdom to whatever I said.
Thank you, Mohan. One thing I can confirm, Mohan, since you and Suresh are there, I know the arguments that I had with you and Suresh on various tax issues. Hours together, days together, but we all enjoyed that conversation. Thank you.
Always a learning,
Always a
with you,
learning.
Shekhar.
Always is a learning. Absolutely. Mr. Suresh, sir, I just go to you for, of course, you also had a greater role in Wipro on listing outside India. And you also had a bigger role in transforming an organization which has got a multiple diverse business interests into an IT giant. So in this process, you would have faced multiple challenges for transformation. One, transforming an organization with a multiple business into an IT giant. Number two, taking that IT giant into an US IPO. So what were the 2 or 3 top challenges that you had, sir, and how did you overcome that in the transformation?
Yeah. In my corporate career, when I joined Wipro, it was a regional company operating with Vanaspati and oil mill, which is primarily a commodity business, and largely Vanaspati selling. And from there, as I superannuated 35 years later, it is now a multinational consumer care company, multinational infrastructure engineering business, multinational healthcare business, and of course, a global IT services and product business in the world. And mind you, this has not happened overnight. This has not happened just because of passage of time, but a deliberate, intentional, persistent journey that Wipro decided to undertake to be better, bigger, and continue to be relevant. So in that context, if I tell you consumer, when I joined, like say, we were a regional Vanaspati manufacturer only in Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and Andhra. And thereby we got into a national player in Vanaspati soaps and toiletries. Followed by in 2007, when we decided that all our businesses should be global businesses, we became international. And today we are present in almost entire Southeast Asia, Middle East, and parts of Africa. Similarly, if I look at the hydraulics business, which we were only manufacturing in Pina, dressing as a vendor for various construction equipment companies, today we are present in multiple factories in India. We are strategic partners to the global players in India and globally by having factories in Brazil, in the United States, in Romania, in Nordic countries, and so on. Not only that, we have added on aero and defense. We have added on additive manufacturing. We have added on water solutions businesses. And now we have added on industrial automation. And all of the businesses that we are in the global, in the entire globe. Similarly, on the IT services, we started in the 80s as a local domestic hardware manufacturer and selling products and services. And as we now are, or as I superannuated, is $10 billion company addressing presence in almost like 90 countries in the world and providing multiple plethora of services. In the healthcare, we started as a distributor of a GE medical devices in India. And now we are not only manufacturers, but also distributors in the South Asia, but also we are a global hub for some of the products that is manufactured for the global requirement. Not only products, but also engineering services and application services. Now, the common theme as I see driving this has been vision, determination, leadership and team with global mindsets, strong strategy and planning, execution, and constant exited introduction, constantly reviewing as to should we be in this business, should we not be in this business on an ongoing basis, including organic and inorganic approaches that we have undertaken, perhaps ahead of the curve versus various other companies in the similar space. Strong financial and human resources rigor, and of course, on the bedrock of ethics, integrity, good governance as a platform to operate in all the geographies that the company has been present. And I'll give you a few examples. When I say vision, what does it mean? For example, when we were in Vanaspati, 90% of what we were manufacturing was imports. Or when we were in electronic hardware manufacturing in India, almost everything was being imported. The value addition was very minimal. And that sort of took us to say that what are we? We are imposing a lot. Of course, we are serving a community, we are serving certain requirements of the country, but we are constantly depending on the imports. And we said we must try to be a net foreign exchange earner by 2000. And Wipro became a net foreign exchange, I think, in 2002. In 1994, we did a visioning exercise and we had a 30 crore net income. And we said by 2000, we should be 300 crore net income, 10x. And 2002, like Mohan said, we filed our prospectus in the New York Stock Exchange. It was 302 crores of net income. In 2000, we did a visioning exercise and we said we will be a $4 billion company by 2004. We didn't get there, but we got it up after 1.5 years. But the vision that we exercised was when we were a $250 million company and we became $4 billion maybe in 2005, but 2004 is how the vision is. And then in 2007, we decided to be global player in our consumer care business, hydraulics business, every business that we are in. And today we are very densely populated outside of India in all these respects. Now, if you were to ask me, then you talked about the listing of the US, like Mohan said, I think our common objective, you first of all, try to get a meeting with the customer. You, after a lot of hard fight and work, you will get an hour. 45 minutes of that goes into saying, well, I'm from India and India is located in this part of the world. I'm in Bangalore, again, this part of the country. I'm in Wipro, Sarjapur, this 45 minutes gone, 15 minutes, what do you explain? So constant, I think, like Mohan said, we have been meeting offsite, onsite, etc., while we are in some form working for our company, but it was also an obligation as leading IT companies that we need an uplift so far as India is concerned, because we believed in the India story. So we said it is not sufficient, but Senapati does it for its own, Mohandas Pai does it, but we as an industry do something. And not only that, we created the NASSCOM, but we worked very closely with them to be able to do government advocacy, regulatory advocacy, and making ourselves equally competitive and equal level playing field vis-a-vis our competition. So US listing was exactly in that direction, that you do not lose that 45 minutes anymore, because you are a US listed company, no questions asked where you are, what is you listed, what is your governance mechanism, etc., because they are tight enough. And it wasn't about capital raising, but it was about attracting talent. It was about using that as a currency to acquire companies. And all of us have demonstrated how we have used that very productively. And when you talk about the listing process, it's not easy. particularly the discipline, particularly the kind of process that we used to have before and after. It was a massive exercise starting year -3. The discipline with respect to quarterly accounts hard close, the discipline about having a strong decision support system, the discipline about forecasting, discipline about getting every stakeholder involved in this whole process, and the additional requirement vis-a-vis the risk management and the investor play that you have to do. All this mattered. So it was not sufficient to cook a lot of good food within, but it is important to have that aroma felt all across, so that not only you are promoting yourself, but also uplifting. Because we have seen, and I'm sure Mohan will collaborate with me, saying many other industries, whether it's textile, steel, people have met us and said, sir, what you have done for India, we are able to get an entry. Like today, when people say that when we are citizens of India going to other countries because of the current government, we are getting a lot of respect. Similarly, because of the IT, because of the quality it demonstrated, because of the leadership it demonstrated, because of the governance it demonstrated, it has given benefit to the country in every other sphere so far as India is operated on. So all this, to my mind, were a lot, and we became part of the NYSE TMT index, or Dow Jones index, and then of course we became part of the Sensex and Nifty so far as India is concerned. And like Mohan said, we're the first company to have a quality standard which is ACI level 5. Not a single third-party outsourcing, outsourcing IT company was a ACI level 5, or a people capability maturity model file level 5. Six Sigma, we're the first company to have adopted Six Sigma in the in the services business, services across the globe. Lean. Now these then became standards for the industry. People said that you are no more an IT company unless you are ACI level 5, PCM level 5, etc., etc. So much so that even the global competitors of ours had to uplift, because they have to make sure that they are able to compete with us. So some of this, and I can give you examples as to how we transitioned in hydraulics, how do we transition in FMCG from a oil mill to a global sort of multinational FMCG company. We have done away with a lot of product business. We have done away with our service or our financial services business. We have done away with Vanaspati. Like when I joined, it was 45 crores sales. 44 crores of that 45 crores doesn't exist. It is only 1 crore which exists today at 1600 crores out of the 70,000 crore company that it is today, the group that it is there. So it has meant shedding a lot of businesses, adding a lot of businesses, underpinning, scaling up the other businesses, and a combination of all this has been able to, that has helped us to be able to build what it is. And it is a significant transition. It is a significant learnings from not only people like you and the big four, but also people like global players. When you meet the Cisco's and Microsoft's and GE's of the world, the kind of practices that you learn from them and adapt them, that makes you much more robust. And constantly benchmarking. Even if I learned 5, I give 1. It is an uplift, and it sort of makes us challenge and matures the top management of the company. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Jatin, I'll come to you right now. You succeeded the Mr. Suresh Sanapati, who was well known. So I want to ask you 2 things. Number 1, the challenge or the expectations that you would have had when you succeeded Suresh Sanapati as a professional. That's number 1, which I'm very keen to know, because very often when you succeed a leader, there is always a challenge on expectations. That's one thing I want to know. Second, you see a lot of change in the technology transformation business. What was technology business a few years back is completely different now. And what is the challenge that you see in this technology transformation business? There's only 2 questions, Jatin, to you. Then I'll come back to you, Jatin.
Sure. Shekhar, first of all, thank you very much for having me on this panel. Mrs. Sanapati is, of course, the guru. Mohan is somebody that we always looked up when we were 4 years, 5 years, 6 years experience in the company, and privilege to be on the same panel as Mr. Sanapati and Mohan. I will start with the first answer. I'll be honest, Shekhar, I don't think there was a very specific expectation which was cast upon me. I mean, the expectation or the pressure was what I could take upon myself. I think one of the biggest thing a tall leader can do for his successor is to create a platform for success, but don't build an expectation around him and let the successor create or navigate his or her own journey. And I can say very proudly that in Wipro's transition which happened, which was sort of a generational transition, as Mr. Senapati spoke about, after 35 years, a towering personality in every decision making, a leader who made a finance, a truly co-pilot function in the organization, not only in our organization, but the way he spoke about it, he talked about it. I'm sure many other organizations got inspired and they went about their journey probably differently than what they would have done on their own. From that position, when I succeeded Mr. Senapati, I think I had only to be grateful because we had a fabulous pedestal created of excellence. We had a fabulous pedestal created of talent grooming and nurturing. We had a absolutely fabulous pedestal of what business expected of us and how we measured ourselves in terms of value addition. So I have never looked at where I should be vis-a-vis my predecessor. I think I would much rather always be grateful to look up to him. But what I had to do was to continue that path of excellence that was built over 2 decades or 3 decades. As Mr. Senapati very rightly described how the company became from what it was to what it was in 2015 when he superannuated. I would now go on to answer your second question, which is to say, what has changed on IT side? I think it's a fabulous time to be an IT services company, and I'm not saying because I work for Wipro. I am saying that because it is truly what I would call as a once in lifetime opportunity to be in IT services. Some of you may have seen 94 to 98 or 99 era, which very vividly Mohan and SCS described. In some form we are back to that. It is that almost deja vu in some form, and I'll describe why it is so. I think there was a huge momentum earlier because people had discovered IT could be a great speed play. It could be a great quality play. It could be also importantly a great cost play, as world has discovered through telecommunication link that you could get work done anywhere in the world. Now the proposition is very similar. I think IT has become the core of any transformation that you will see in the business. One of the things that all of us understand that pandemic was probably the most I would say cruel or adverse impactful event that could have happened on human race, but it has also created a sort of discontinuity in all businesses, all parts of transactions that a human or an individual in the society undertakes. And suddenly people have realized that if they don't transform their businesses, they would be extinct. Because the generation that went in the pandemic and generation of consumer or buyer or users who are coming out on the other side of pandemic are two different generations. You have seen the sort of a transformation that has happened on quick delivery side. And I can assure you that is nothing given the transformation that has happened in many other businesses on a B2B side, on enterprise side. And what is transformation? Transformation is very simply 10x improvement in speed and ease of doing anything. If it is not 10x improvement, frankly, I don't call it transformation. You are defining something simpler or continuous improvement as transformation. If something has to be called transformation, it should be a 10x improvement. If you are closing your books in 15 days, can you do it in 2 days or 1.5 days? If you are able to get a spare part to the assembly line in with a 15-day stock, can you get it in a 1-day stock? If you were sourcing something with a lag time of 10 days, can you do it in 1 day? And that is a transformation that each businesses in the world are trying to do. I was speaking with one of our customers, and they have 8,000 parts for a car, and they are trying to get to a just-in-time delivery by the assembly line. They already achieved 24 hours. They want to get to 6 hours, saying that I need to have my plant, the part by the plant 6 hours before I'm going to use it. And that should be an exact SKU. So if I'm going to have next car in assembly line, which is red, I need an SKU which is matching with that red SKU. So, this is a transformation that all businesses are going through. And if they're going through, they have realized that it is not possible to get transformation in the physical or mechanical parts of the business. So, I am an engineer, and I did my final year project on efficiency of internal combustion engine, Shekhar, and I can tell you in last 30 years, that improvement is 15% or 20%. But what an IT can do, and you see in Tesla, is 10x, 15x, maybe 100x. So IT is becoming that pivot for transformation in all businesses. Therefore, cloud, cybersecurity, digital, data and analytics are becoming a very different drivers to all businesses, not only for cost and efficiency. That play is frankly gone many years, before, which was bad. Now it is about transformation and simplicity and ease of doing business. With that, I will move you, I'll put it back to you. Thank you, Shekhar.
Thank you, Jatin. Now, it's great for an engineer to be a CFO because you know the both sides of the world of an organization. No, it's great from that perspective. Now I'll come to Mohan now. Mohan, you have seen the IT industry from IT, moved to education. Now you are very active in startups. So I have only 2 questions for you. One from a personal side of your experience, another from the business side and to the country. What was the single reason for you to transform from IT to the education side and to the now you're involved in a lot of startups, which I'm aware of it. What is the single reason? Forget about anything else. I just wanted from a professional side, what motivated? That's number 1. And 2, motivating from IT to education as a chairman, that involves a lot of challenges. So how do you cope up with the challenge? I know, Mohan, very well that you can cope up any challenge, but I just want to benefit from the audience perspective. And the last but not the least, where do you see India in the days to come, particularly in education and startups? Because country as a country, you have been talking to us very often that India is the most youngest population, and education and startups are the important thing from India. So I just want to pick up your thoughts on these 3 points more.
Well, Shekhar, my mother was a school teacher. And growing up, I used to go to the library every day to read books, and Saturday, Sunday, read 2 books, spend 8-9 hours a day. So book reading was a fascination at home. When I was 14-15, I started collecting annual reports. By the time at 21, I had a collection of 2,000 annual reports, Indian and global, which I had read. So I was very curious. So education was a lifelong passion. And passion was also to show people that I'm smarter than other people, so I could argue with them. Senapati doesn't argue much with me on many things. So it is just the way you are. So in Infosys, from the time I became a CFO, we had an education research department. I used to take an interest in them, and then I used to work with them. Then I helped build the world's largest university campus for a company in Mysore, where we could train 35,000 people in one sitting. Then after I stepped down as CFO, Murthy told me, why don't you take charge of education? So in my 5 years as HR director and having E&R report to me, we trained more than 250,000 people and hired 200,000 people. And we lost a lot of people too. That's why the numbers are very large. And I had 600 computer science faculty working for me. We started a Campus Connect project to have 500 engineering colleges work with us, training faculty for those colleges, many things we did. So it's very enjoyable because that was something that I loved doing. So after I left Infosys, but before that, when I stepped down as CFO in 2006, Murthy told me that how will you feel stepping down as CFO? Because, you've been talking to the media, you're always in the limelight, tomorrow nobody will talk to you. I said, doesn't matter, that is over. In fact, nobody spoke to me the day I stepped down because I refused to speak to them and they all went to Bala too. I'm sure Senapati understands all this. Jatin, you got to be careful about all that. Don't get carried away by all the adoration that you get and all the awards people like Shekhar give you. And, I remember my first meeting with HR when they came to my room, they were all sitting down, glum faces. Asked them, what is, do you have any question? He said, they asked me, how do we trust you? I said, what? Trust me. I'm the board member for HR. What do you mean trust me? No, you've been a CFO, you've been beating us up. They forgot we had the largest stock option scheme in the world. In India at that point of time, we made all of them rich. We gave them a lot of loans for buying houses and everything. They got big raises, but they were always skipping because they wanted 30-40% raise every year. They think money grows on trees, can go and pluck them. I'm sure Senapati and Jatin understand this. And I told them, look, till yesterday, I was a person who looked at a person walking into my room as the net present value of the future stream of revenues, because they're all consultants. Now I look at a person as a human being with empathy, and I have to make sure I work with them. So, we have this ability to change to the circumstances and look after a new portfolio. So it was a very seamless transition for me, may not be for other people, but for me. And after I left Infosys, Shekhar, basically to get my life back. 12-hour days, 7 days a week, it was a tough life. I wanted my life back to spend time on what I like best. I worked with Ranjan, became the chairman of the education service company. And we also said we'll set up a fund. So in 2012, we set up a fund. And the fund was essentially to connect to the new ecosystem because we saw the startup ecosystem coming. It's 10 years ago now. We are pioneers. We gave the first check to Baiju and all that. Today, we have more than 14 funds with over 300 companies. 500 companies come to us for capital every single month. To me, it was a very seamless thing because that's exactly what we wanted to do. And we have a very important way of handling it. The day you step down from a position, that life is over. And please remember, Shekhar, once you're past 40, what remains is less than what you've been through. So make the most of it. Why look back? Never look back upon your career. Never look back upon your life. Make the most of it. Look at Suresh. He is so happy playing bridge, going to the pub and having fun every single time, That's what you got to do because, after 40, 50, 60, you got less time, man. Make the most of it. So, it is a philosophy of life that you have and to do it. But I want to be connected with the network. Even today, I work very hard to make sure the startups get good policy support of the state government and the union government. We work with opinion makers, with RBI, with SEBI, everything else, because that is the passion we have to make the world better. Shekhar, when we do well in our careers as professionals, we have to work to make the system better for everybody. So Suresh and I used to go to government to help improve policy for everybody. We never went and asked for a break for ourselves. We never said, help us out, do this. We said, help out everybody. And people used to tell us, oh, we are willing to help you, but what about that company in so-and-so place will take advantage? I said, man, learn to trust everybody. Let's grow this country. We were very patriotic, very nationalist to say that India comes first, our industry comes then, and then we come. If India prospers, industry prospers, we prosper. So I think that is the philosophy we all had when we're growing up at that particular era, and that continues. Now we're all enjoying our life, doing things that we like, and we all had great careers, but that's the career we chose, and that's the way we chose to live our lives.
Thank you, Mohan. Thanks a lot. Now, I am aware of the passion of books. I am also, I have been recipient of a lot of books gifted by you, and which I need to complete some of the books. I'm going to complete other. Probably, I hope I have complete one of all the books given by you. Thank you, Mohan, for that, and thanks a lot for. And I know personally how much you and Suresh have contributed for the environment and the startup and the government. I'm personally aware of it, but thank you, Mohan. Now I'll come to Mr. Suresh Senapati. Sir, you have been a great champion of change in various sectors, various industries, various economic side, taxation side, policy side. You have been a great champion. And you have seen the success and the failures in the same way, you have taken it in the stride. In the new age businesses, there's quite a lot of challenges and people expect success overnight. So I just wanted to pick up your brains with your experience. What is the secret of success for the present day entrepreneurs and the present business leaders? And what will be your advice for them, sir? In the particular, the way the technology is evolving, business is evolving, what will be your advice to those leaders as is for the secret of the success, sir?
Well, I think there won't be much different in terms of defining a business purpose. For example, you are venturing into something as a business leader, or you are a party as a stakeholder, either as an employer, director, advisor, supplier, customer to an enterprise. It's what is the business purpose? What are they for? And in that context, to say, if I am in that business for this outcome to deliver, what should the vision that should be in terms of the need as defined by the customer, market share, product leader, market leader, time frame. And once you are there, and that must be there, and of course I'm cognizant of the fact that as the technology is pivoting faster, you start with something and 6 months later, 1 year later, may have to pivot, and that change management on an internal basis has to be part of a curriculum, which means it is part of the DNA that you cannot start something. In fact, when Wipro started and whichever businesses we are in, as the business plan started to what we finally ended up, largely 8 out of 10 times it has been different. It was not the same as we thought we'll start and we ended. So in a startup environment, in the current environment with the pace of change is so fast, it can only be more manifold as opposed to anything lesser. So in that context, change mindset has always to be there to adapt, to let go. And but the most important is having a proper team, which is aligned for that particular purpose, not for a 9 to 6, not for a compensation that it gets, but the purpose for which you are, and particularly when you are a startup and you are a small team, having high quality talent. And I have seen the leaders that I have worked with, they have always been hungry for talent. I have always demonstrated that, or visible or not, but I always, loved talent to be around. It challenges you. It unburdens you. It allows you to think differently. It allows you to get into new territories, and therefore you can go out of finance and step into businesses and help them drive business. Like Jatin said, a co-pilotship that we developed, we couldn't have developed that if we were not having a great team. And therefore, the leader has to play a very significant role in picking the right team, and that team is not necessarily a rank holder, multiple qualifications, etc., but combination of all those factors, which is a passion, which is wanting to learn, learnability, which matters a lot as opposed to a specialist by himself. And second thing is the team, because gone are those days you may be the best of the lot, but unless it is a one-person work, you can deliver. You have to work as a team, and the team means every independent mind works with you, and sometimes you change with them, you change your mind to be aligned with them, or go through a proper process of debating, researching, understanding the mindset of each other to arrive at a common goal. Because many companies, you have seen, they go up to 50 crores, 100 crores, 200 crores, they are not able to scale up because their minds don't meet together. Large families, they just disappear because they fought in the family. So for business purpose and the team, and wanting to learn a lot and wanting to be thinking something big, that steps in the right direction for you to be able to achieve certain big things. And for that, you need to do adequate research. For that, you need to have some mentor kind of a companies which says, if this is the kind of a company and I want to be A, B, C, D, it helps to be able to build some framework within the company. And the final thing I'll say is the strategic planning and execution. Every vision has to be supported with a strategic plan, which is a 5-year term, which is a 3 to 5. with a 1 year being much more hard coded and translating that, because many times I find vision is there, strategic plan is there, operating plans are there. They are just three different documents, because operating plan is mostly linked to the incentives that the people get. And therefore that is much more debated, much more drilled through as opposed to the other. But alignment of all the three is important. It cannot be only bookish. And those companies who are successful are those who are able to put these three together. And therefore the rigor of execution is there. And final, ethics, integrity, and governance. Because it's about governance, is about not what is the company law requirement, the minimum thing that to be prescribed, but they are your stakeholders and they are as much entitled to understand your mindset, your business policies, your business principles, your transactions, major transaction. And that has to be understood, and that has to be the basis for you to be exchanging notes and sharing information.
Thank you, sir. We have another 13 more minutes exactly. So I'll be asking one question to Jatin. After that, I'll come to the buzzer round. So it will be easier for you to close that. So this question to Jatin. Jatin, actually, I want to close. You are an engineer, became a CFO. But the role of CFO has undergone a significant change now. It's just not finance and accounting. It's beyond finance and accounting, the risk, the technology, the business side, quite a lot of changes in the CFO. So what do you think as a CFO in the days to come, how the role of CFO is going to become, number one? And number two, which Mohan always shares with me, of course, with Suresh Sanapati too. In 2000s, there is a galaxy of CFOs like Mohan, Suresh Sanapati, Mahalingam of TCS, HDFC CFO, galaxy of CFOs. So
Wall of Fame.
Sorry, sir?
Wall of Fame.
Yeah, a wall of fame, what we call a wall of fame. And those days as a consultant, I used to get prepared 100 times before I go and meet these CFOs, because they will ask me more probing questions. Not that today I'm not scared, but that's a different story. But the role of CFO has undergone a significant change from what it was and what it is now. So how do you see the role of CFO in the days to come, Jatin?
So Shikhar, in my view, you can say both. I think I could answer this question saying role of CFO has remained very similar. And I can also say the role of CFO has changed very significantly. I think the most foundational role of CFO is to identify the value drivers for the organization. And it's important that there is a deep understanding, appreciation of what will drive value for my shareholders. And that realization must be there every morning on not only CFO's mind, but everybody in finance mind. And then you work to make sure that entire business ecosystem understand that thoroughly. You create a driver of metric systems, which are, there is a different measurement for a project manager, there is a different measurement for a business leader, there is a different manager for treasury, there is a different measurement for another function, which brings those, connects all the value drivers integrates that and converts it into what you think will drive value for the shareholder. So that's a most foundational expectation of a CFO, and I think that has remained, I would say, constant or continuous, be it in 2002 or 2022. What has changed is the way you prepare your team to cope with the environment. And I'll give you an example. I think I don't think that the CFOs of 90s understood ERP very well, whereas the CFOs of early 2000 really understood the power of ERP and leveraged it to galvanize all the forces towards those value drivers. I believe that now the whole third generation is focused on the new technology drivers. For example, there is something that you will be able to get out of your ERP system as a standard report. But if you are able to write an SQL query, you will get significantly faster and significantly better outcome of the same database that you would otherwise have to wait for somebody to prepare a report for you for 15 days. How do you prepare people to understand AI and say that leverage this AI? Because we are in the times of big data. all our companies are no longer companies. I can say they have become countries. I mean, that's as diverse in terms of type of work that you do, the type of complexity that you perform, the locational presence of all of us are anywhere between 57 to 65 countries in the world. How do you get the power of every transaction being synthesized into something that can help you deliver a better value to a shareholder? So how do you leverage the power of big data and analytics for your team, apart from all the things that Mohan and Mr. Ganapathy spoke about before, which is to say that you have to be ahead in the curve than anybody else in terms of your controllership skills, your understanding of markets, your understanding of company law, SEBI, and so on and so forth. But also, how do you leverage technology for a significantly superior outcome for your organization, moving them towards value drivers? That is one. Second is really doing a constant analysis of how you are reinvesting your costs back. And I'm using word purposefully. I mean, one needs to reinvest profit, but reinvestment of profit is typically in a very different connotation. But you have your play on your costs, which is to say your operating margin is, let's say, 20%, then 80% is your cost. And how you are using your cost? Are you using your sales and marketing dollars towards a skill to a building which is 5 years back, or you're investing that towards building of skill which is going to become a hot commodity in future? Are you spending your sales and marketing spend towards cloud, or you are spending that towards something that was a service which we call classically traditional or legacy services? How do you optimize your that $80? For example, do we really need so many offices now in today's time, post pandemic, on sales side that we needed before? Do you need to have physical studios for digital work versus creating an excellent virtual studio for your digital work? So you're constantly challenging yourself on your costs and whether they are really creating a bang for the buck. And there is a term called momentum of force. Momentum of force is nothing but it doesn't depend on the value of the force. It depends on two things. It depends on the value of the force and the direction of the force. Your job as a CFO is to really see that force of my every dollar has to be perpendicular to the result that you want to achieve. Therefore, you get the maximum bang for that dollar. And that is, I think, the role that I see in today's time, as you are seeing that there are portfolio within portfolios. What was our revenue stream in 2012 is probably 20% of our revenue stream today. 80% of the business has changed. And if you are not asking yourself these questions on a daily basis as a CFO of the company, but more importantly, CFO of that small unit that you are working on, then you are not doing justice to your role.
Thank you, Jatin. Thanks a lot. So I'm just going to the final buzzer round where 1 minute for each of the answers. So I'll just start with Mohan. Mohan, what is the single advice that you will give to budding business leaders today?
Well, I will say follow your dream, your passion, and overachieve what you want to achieve.
Okay, great. Follow your dream, passion. Great. So dream, passion before 40, not the passion after 60. What's what Suresh, sir.
I'll add one to what Mohan said.
You can add this point, but I had a different question to you also.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Okay, you can add that. You can add what Mohan said, but I had a different question to you. Because
Please.
This is something which I would like you to answer, because Wipro being a great organization, despite control shareholders, not such a public shareholding as company, but we have been a champion of corporate governance and ethics and integrity. And ethics and integrity, I have seen, I am fortunate enough to work with you and Mohan. It's part of a DNA. Now, and I've seen you after retiring from Wipro, you have been a part of the group, multiple organizations, an independent director where you insist on ethics and integrity and governance. So I have, in addition to what you can supplement on, one piece of advice to the young leaders on the corporate governance. What will be your advice, sir?
I'm very clearly with respect to the stakeholder management. First of all, define who the stakeholders are. It is not necessarily only the investors. Many often it gets sidelined or it gets commoditized, saying that it is only the investor who is the stakeholder. No, it is the employees, it is the advisors, it is the customer, it is the vendor, etc., etc. And in that context, appreciating their interests, appreciating that they are as much interested in the goodness of the company, healthiness of the company, progressive company, as I am, who is the CFO, who is the CEO, who is the chairman or whatever, is important. And therefore, sharing information with them, disclosing your dilemmas, choices that you make. You know, for example, you go to a board and say that we require your approval, as opposed to seeking inputs, putting the choices and making them part of. Of course, you go with the recommendation and say, Mohan, tell me what is to be done. No, I'm saying bringing the point to the table, providing the necessary information, saying that I have these 2, 3, 4 choices, and this choice is more preferable as we see it because of these pro and cons, and therefore getting the acceptance and approval will be a fantastic way. And how often do we do it? So that it is not only you get value out of the board, but you carry them as stakeholders. They make them part of decision making, because you are not working 365 days, 24/7. You are independent, you are non-executive, and therefore you are required to add value wherever you are expected to. But it's important as to how you engage. And I still think, I think we at Wipro do a very good job in getting the expertise that are there, the engagement, the touch time that we have, the information sharing that gets done. I see unparalleled to any other company that I've seen so far. But we spend decent time, get decent engagement, and get value, and they also feel being part of the board, part of the company's management, and therefore the pride goes with that. And I think those are some of those stuff that you need to build. And when you talk about a governance is about when the calamity strikes, how do you deal with it? In terms of a disclosure, in terms of communicating with the transparencies issues. You know, for example, Mohan, I remember have faced issues on the sexual harassment or on immigration issues there. And I think the cleanliness with which they communicated to the outside world, including the financial liability. Or similarly, we had issues with respect to the World Bank, or there was an occasion where we had to report a number which is not alike India GAAP. The number in the India GAAP was higher, the number in the US GAAP was lower, because the accounting guidelines were different so far as the gaps were concerned. But so we were nervous in the beginning as to should we disclose, should we not, what do we do, what do we don't do. But once we communicated to the investors at large, saying, guys, for one quarter it will be, the next quarter it will be bridged, everybody appreciated that, the very fact that you communicate to them. So whenever anything is in doubt, communicate, over-inform rather than under-inform. And reporting, and for example, Mohan and we have always communicated to the industry much more than what the global IT services companies have communicated. In fact, ours became a standard for them to communicate. Communicating headcount, communicating utilization, communicating bench staff, on-site, offshore. It's like people said, hey guys, are you sort of communicating your secret sauce? What happens if somebody else comes in? So that is where you have to have the confidence that you can be ahead of the curve. And these are only creating challenges on ourselves to sharpen or hone our skills far better to be staying ahead of the curve.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Jatin, the last question to you. What is the one challenge that you would like to continue to have, Jatin? It's a pleasurable challenge for you.
Okay. So,
my yoga teacher says, do this exercise and enjoy the pain.
So, thank you, Mr. I think it's a very, I have been fortunate to be groomed very well at Wipro. At every point in time, I didn't have to worry about what I'm going to do next. And I was always given a path, a challenge which was next. And I think that is a constant challenge that a leader at the CFO level has to do to the topmost talent that organization has. How do you bring the best out? And I'll take an analogy, Shekhar. I run little bit, so I will share that analogy. If you want to run, you run a 10-kilometer race. If you want to run well, you run a half marathon, which is 21 kilometers. And if you really want to know who you are, then you run a full marathon, right? And I think my biggest challenge is, and which is a pleasurable challenge, is to have as many of my top talent discover themselves truly, fully at Wipro. If I can get them to that phase in their career, then I think I've done my duty as a leader of the tribe. And that's what I see is my pleasurable challenge.
Well said, well said.
Very great, Jatin. Absolutely a great learning session. I just want to close the session by quoting once what Mohan advised me when I was young on running. He said, Shekhar, when you run, you will fall down. Don't bother about who looks at you on the sideways. You restart your running looking at your goal and reach the goal post. That's what Mohan advised me in somewhere in 1999 when I met him. I still remember that dialogue when Mohan told me about this advice on running, Jatin. I just want to close the conversation on what Mohan told me about running. Thanks a lot, Mohan, Mr. Suresh Chanapati. And Jatin, it's a great learning session. I keep on going for hours together. It's a great session for us. But definitely, I'm sure BCIC will come back to you three for one more session about the experiences that you can share. It's a great experience. Thanks a lot. Just be here for only 1 minute for displacing our virtual memento, which will reach it to your address very soon. Team, can you just display the memento, please?
Really my pleasure.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Suresh.
Thank you, thank you, Shekhar,
Thank
for
you very
having
much.
us.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's a great session where I have Jogin Desai, my dear friend, Chetna Sinha, with whom I had multiple interactions. It's great to have this session. So far, we have been talking about a role of business leaders in building up the business. This session is completely different. We are talking to two great leaders who is transforming and is contributing to the society. In a way, it is a great contribution. We not only know about the business contribution, but also the relevance of the social contribution for growing up the business. We have Ms. Chetna Sinha, who is the founder chairperson of Mandeshi Mahila Shakti Bank, who has transformed the women banking in the western parts of India, particularly the rural parts of Maharashtra and Mumbai. She has transformed the entire women banking, where she created a Mahila bank for the entire women. I would not call leaders, but they became leaders thanks to Chetna Sinha in that sector. Thanks, ma'am, for taking your time and participating in the session. Then we have Jogin Desai. A lot of Bangaloreans may be aware of Jogin, but a lot of people may not be aware of what is his contribution. And it is my great pleasure to introduce my dear friend. He runs Social Venture Partners, one of the bigger organizations in Bangalore. I feel guilty sometimes because I was part of that initially. Still, I'm part of the network, but I not contributed much as I was doing at the beginning, thanks to my other preoccupations. Jogin Desai and SVP funds a lot of social venture partners, not a typical business startup, social startups. They promote them, they help them, they grow with them. And in addition to that, Jogin Desai and my other friend, which is going to come after 6:45, 5 minutes is going to talk about Mr. Madan Patki, who is also one of our SVP guys. Both of them are doing a phenomenal job of creating 1 million jobs in India, which is a dream for them, and they've done a phenomenal work. So I hand it over them to Lavanya. Lavanya, as you all know, she is the co-chairperson for HR and M&M Committee. And I hope this session will open the eyes of various corporates on various business leaders and what is the relevance of society. And after this, I'm requested Madan Patke to speak for 5 minutes about the role that startups, social side, which he is doing it for only for 5 minutes, so that it becomes an important learning for all of us. Over to you, Lavanya. Lavanya needs no introductions. I don't have to take time on introducing Lavanya. Over to you, Lavanya.
Thank you so much, Shekhar. I welcome everyone to this virtual session. Actually, it's a very...
I delayed by 5 minutes, sorry, but you can close at 6:45 to 6:50.
Sure, Shekhar. I'll ensure that I close by that time. Like I was saying, it's a very different topic. I know we have been, yesterday and today we have been hearing a lot from the leaders from the corporate about what they did during COVID, how they kind of, but one thing what really kind of stood out is everybody is really believes in making the world better. Whether when we heard, Mr. Senapati or even Mohandas actually speaking before also, they all were talking about, follow your passion and the kind of do things where what you believe in and kind of give back to the society. That message is kind of coming very clearly. And with that as a, as a setup, we are going to kind of have this discussion with our distinguished panel, Dr. Jogin and Chetna ma'am, who have obviously vast experience of working in this SVP, so-called, which is like actually getting into another boom sector, and how it is really kind of becoming relevant to the present day. Like Shekhar said, I will try to close this in next 40 minutes. So I'll directly jump into the questions what I have for, Dr. Jogin and Chetna ma'am. Dr. Jogin, I just want you to really introduce to the audience to kind of SVP and what has been your key learnings during this journey.
Sure, Lavanya. Thank you. And thanks, Shekhar, for the kind introduction. I'm not sure if I deserve all of it. So we got, I think I joined Social Venture Partners approximately 7 years back, 7, 8 years maybe. And it happens when every one of us realizes that the next amount of money that you are going to earn is incrementally going to bring you less and lesser joy. And you find that you need to do something meaningful. Right. And that is where I think I met Ravi Venkatesh in that context. And that's how my journey into social venture philanthropy started. It's been an amazing journey. And the key learnings, if I may, are that, so what we attempted to do at least is figure out how to co-create business models with NGOs, which can help them scale the next step in their journey. And work with them, get some of our, in all humility, corporate expertise and learn from them as well. And that was the attempt. So I would say two things that were truly, aha moments for me. First is that, ultimately you go in with this intent to do a lot of good, right? That I'm going to change the world, that sort of thing. And you ultimately figure out at the end that this has ended up changing you, and that's the most beautiful part of it, because you become a better person because of this. As we in the corporate world, the only implicit way to measure your success is becomes which car you drive and where do you live and how many stock options do you have and what's the valuation of your company. When you work and meet with these amazing NGOs, and Chetna obviously is one of them, you understand that there is a different definition of success, there is a different definition of meaning, and in our own selfish interest, we should become philanthropists. So I'll stop here and see what Chetna has to say.
Chetna ma'am, your thoughts?
Yeah, so thanks Lavanya, and thanks Jogin for leading the discussion about the being a philanthropy, being a philanthropist as a joyful experience, right? That is. So let me share a little bit of my background. My life never started with sort of a career or it was very interesting. It started with very different passion. I was born and raised in Mumbai, was part of when I was in the undergraduate program of the Mumbai University, I met a Gandhian leader, Jayaprakash Narayan, who was moving from university to university and talking to young people of India that India needs people like you mean, he meant Bharat, villages of India needs people like you. And why don't you all work in the villages of India? Because people need young leadership to take their issues forward. And at that time, I was just like, that actually made me so much attracted that I decided that why don't I travel whole India with Jayaprakash Narayan. And I did that. This is in 1981. And so I traveled across the India in the villages of India. And I would say, Lavanya, Jogin, that what I saw was very different. Not a single day there would be a woman or a person who would have complaints. And in that, I was so surprised that in the 50 degrees Celsius, in the heat, people were doing the work of breaking the stones. But at night, they would say, we have dreams. And dreams of, saving money, investing in education of our children. So that made me like, these people, when they are breaking the stone in the 50 degrees Celsius, these women, their dreams are very simple, but for them it is so important. And that made me think that I want to work in the village. And I decided, I left Mumbai, started working in the drought-stricken area of Satara. And when I fell in love with my husband, who is also farmer from that area with no higher education. My family was actually, that was a disaster in my family, that they said that I want to leave Mumbai. But on the other side, when I shifted from Mumbai, our women said that we want to do savings. And as Shekhar was mentioning, that I never thought that I'll start a women's bank. And they said that we want to do savings, banks are not opening the account. And I felt it is their fundamental right. They're not asking anything from the government. A simple place to save their money, make it safe. So we applied for the banking license. As it usually happens, everything is denied there, right? And that was denied. And after that denial also, what our women said? That the denial was because they were not educated. So our women said, we cannot read and write, but we can count. And they came with me to Reserve Bank of India, saying that we cannot read and write, we can count. Tell us to calculate the interest of any principal amount. If we fail, don't issue the license. Tell your officers to do it and see who can calculate faster. Lavanya, I must have shared this story for 1,000 times, right? But every time I do it purposefully to remind myself that these were the women who became my teachers. And I'm so proud that after 25 years, with the bank and the business school for rural women and the radio and the chambers of commerce for these women entrepreneurs, today we have been able to impact 800,000 women. And by 23, we will be celebrating 1 million women entrepreneurs with no outside support in the bank, no outside investors, member capital, member savings, member credit. So this is I've learned from our women is that never give poor solutions to poor people. They are smart. They deserve a smart solutions.
What an inspiring story, ma'am. I wanted you to share about how actually the Mandeshi Foundation and how you kind of opened the Mahila Bank, and it's truly inspiring. I've heard this, like you said, in a various occasions, even on TV, on radio, but every time you hear it, it obviously kind of sounds very inspiring, to kind of see that. Coming back to Dr. Jogin, actually, while I was actually talking to him, he said that there is never enough time, So what, according to you, at what point of career, and since you said it obviously, doing philanthropy is something which brings you joy. What point do you think is correct to start doing SVP? Is it like as early as you start the career, or somewhere midway, or you need to hit some kind of milestone to start doing it?
Yeah, so I don't agree that there is not enough time. Everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. And we decide to prioritize those depending on how we set our priorities for ourselves, right? So if we decide that it is not priority for me to create the philanthropic space within my own mind, which can help me become a better person and my family become better, right? Especially the impact that it's on kids, then you won't. So the point is, how do you do this, right? It's easy to say that you have to find the time. And I've had lots of arguments and conversations with a lot of people within our social venture networks on this topic. And I was stuck by two things. One, the partners who stay and consistently give more time, they do it because they know it is good for them, right? It is a selfish motive. Philanthropy makes you a better person. It makes you impart that knowledge, and when you are a better person, the people around you in your family, especially the younger generation, understands that, absorbs them. There's a saying, "Jo dekha bhai sikha," and that's what happens. You can give them lots of gyan, but they won't read it. But if you're actually doing it, they will pick it up and absorb it. So that's number one. You have to partners who understand this is for them end up consistently spending significantly more amount of time, versus partners who think, let me give back to society, quote unquote. Right. So that's an attitude change that I myself have gone into. Yeah. The second thing is, once again, easy to say, hard to do, because you've got travel, especially now with things opening up. You're traveling abroad and so on. So, some of the most impactful work that we have done in Social Venture Partners, at least I have done, is when I was at my busiest. Because there are several ways to do things if you really want it, right? So we used to work with Vritti, which is an amazing NGO. And they used to come in my office and we used to say, you know what, I've got lunch, which I used to do alone, while scrolling my phone. Now I'm going to do it with you while we're going to talk. And they would sit around and they figure out, when's the next moment that we can all get together. So there's a lot of impactful work that we did that way. And the last thing I will say is, life gets in the way because you have lots of other responsibilities, and all of us do. Find a cause that breaks your heart. And if that breaks your heart, you will figure out how to find the time. There is never enough time. There are lots and lots of excuses that you can provide to yourself. When you're young, you can say, Abhi to it's my earning time. And then when you're 45 or 50, you think, you know what, I still need to go ahead. And by the time you're 55 or 60, that flame of trying to do something is extinguished. And then you end up either sort of, which we have seen most of, either end up sort of supporting the kids of your mates or some orphanage somewhere and all of that. But you have not systematically built up constructively the pillars of life over decades that will allow you to then transition to that. So there's never enough time, and there's no good age to start. You just have to start at 6:46 p.m. today.
That's very interesting, what you have kind of put in. Coming back to Chetna ma'am, actually, I know both, actually this question is both to Dr. Jogin and Chetna ma'am. Obviously you have experience, both of you have experienced journey in corporate, and then kind of moving into full-fledged into SVP. I know Jogin sir still does a lot of work more like a corporate, but does the definition of success change? I know Dr. Jogin opened it saying success is all about cars and this thing, but how does that change? How does the perspective as such change while you kind of get into this whole journey?
Sure. Yeah, Mr. Jogin, would you like to respond?
No, please go ahead, ma'am.
No, ma'am, please. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that, Lavanya, when you were talking about the success or I listen, I find it that when I work with women in the villages, I see that purpose becomes very important. What is the purpose in my life, right? And when I say these words, actually, let me talk about, like, sometimes, people start their life with when there is no success. Let me narrate a story of Manisha Jimal. She was doing her 10th standard. She passed with the 88 percentage, and she was wanting to become a pharmacist in a village. But her parents had decided to get her married because they wanted to invest in son's education. And Manisha said that I was sitting on I was in a marriage and I saw my certificate and I was getting 88 percentage. I wanted to become a pharmacist. But the next day I'm going to actually raise the sheep and goats. And in that situation, she had to leave there was no question of continuing the education and rearing buffaloes and sheep. During pandemic, her husband lost the job in Mumbai. They came back in the village and she started doing a milk business where rearing the buffalo and selling the milk. Now, when she was actually doing this, but at the same time, she wanted to do something. And Manisha felt, and Mandeshi was doing this whole digital literacy for women who are in the villages. And she came forward and she said, I want to do and understand the digital banking. And when she sent a digital bill of milk to her client. Now, Manisha doing a business of milk vending, rearing buffalo. She sent the digital bill to her client. Her client felt like, oh my God, मेरे यहाँ जो दूध बेचती है, the one lady who is selling the milk is sending me the digital bill, and I should pay her digitally. And she became a story of pride for the client who was buying the milk, that, I am sending digital money to my milkmaid. And that when Manisha got money and she became a champion in digital transaction, she was the first lady in her village to do the digital transaction. After that, everybody wanted to learn from her. And she became a digital didis of that area. Not only she was teaching other women, but she was teaching sarpanch of those village leaders how to do the digital transaction. Coming from nomadic tribes, I would say when I saw the Manisha's success, she couldn't continue her higher education. She had to rear sheep and goat. But today she is a digital champion. And State Bank of India also calls her that when there is a direct benefit transfer, which has to be transferred in that village, they will call Manisha to do everything. So when I see the success of Manisha, I find that that success has a huge purpose. It may not materialize in the success of, as I was hearing, like, profit, car, all those. But the whole village get digital knowledge, whole village get gyan of that, and that whole village rise successfully collectively. I see that that gives me that success of Manisha not only gives her joy, but it gives her inspiration to other people, to all of us. So I would say that the success I would like to define is that which not only inspires me, but which gives a collective inspiration and a very purposeful life.
Very, very inspiring, ma'am. Dr. Jogin, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is fantastic, Chetna ma'am. And I think, it's very simple. I mean, you see that and there is lots of scientific data on it, that beyond a certain amount, you need a certain amount of money to gain a certain level of happiness, and after that the incremental one trails off. I mean, just to give you a background which I wasn't aware of, the let's look at the US, right? US is richer 20%. The average person in the US is 20% richer than the richest country in Europe right now. It doesn't feel like it, right? Because there's and you know, you can even relate to our own lives, right? My father was a reader and a lecturer in the Gujarat University. My mother was an educator, and we were fairly low middle class going to the middle class kind of family. And you see our childhood, and it was a very, very joyful childhood. So we have seen this. These are all examples around us, and all of us that are on the call, we will have seen how people used to live simpler lives. We forget because we get into the rat race, and that's fantastic because that creates wealth, which can then ultimately create a virtuous circle. So it is important, but not so important that you forget the real meaning and purpose of life, which is to make sure that you can give back. And why I think Martin Luther King said that the only purpose of life is to understand. Okay, I'm going to butcher the quote, so I'm not going to say, but it says the only purpose is to understand what you're here for. What's the purpose of your existence? And you will not find that in one area, but you will find that as you sort of keep exploring. And if one of the things that is amazing and inspiring is when you meet NGO founders who've done so much at such a young age. I talked about somebody named Vineet Saraiwala, who is a CEO of Atypical Advantage. Atypical Advantage is a talent pool of people who are differently able. He himself is legally blind, and he runs this entire NGO, and he's created such an amazing impact. Right. So, I mean, of course, Madan, my very good friend, is on the call. He's, the kind of things he's done is, I've not done 1/10 of that. So you get a different measure of success. And I think that is incredibly important for us, because if we don't, you need sort of nourishment for the soul, if you will. And that can only happen if you can figure out an alignment of your purpose with what you are doing daily. Now, some of us don't have that luxury, right? You've got to run and you've got to run a corporate life and etc. But there is a very clear way to do it if you start engaging in small things around you. And you will eventually find that purpose. Where I go back, Lavanya, to what I said, you will find a purpose that breaks your heart. And once it breaks your heart, you will not be able to sleep at night. And that's where you've made it. Because that's when then you will figure out how to allocate the time that is needed. And it will, believe me, once you find that, your time allocation will automatically happen. Nobody will need to push you on that.
It's very interesting. So I work for a company where, which is highly digital, work with a lot of youth, and what we see is youth today is obviously restless, looks like instant gratification, I just need, and I need it now. Obviously success is like very differently defined for them and all that kind of stuff. And since both, hearing from both of you, obviously it is good to kind of start very early, right? So I just want to kind of, and then I think so it is good to, find that purpose, you don't need to get lost to find that purpose. So I just want to kind of hear your message to the youth about what it is. And because most of the people who will be hearing to us will also want to find their purpose. So I just want to hear your thoughts on this before Chetna ma'am.
Yeah. So let me share with you, I mean, as I mentioned, I have so many things, experienced so many different lives with women when I'm with the community. Let me share with you, sometimes what happens is that in your work, when you are so focused and strategic, which is great, but you get some experiences which actually changes very much. So I would just like to share one experience when we had a very bad drought in 2012. And it was such a bad drought. There was no water, no fodder in the area. And I mean, the area where we operate, Mandeshi operates, it's all, most of the families have cattle. And so no water, no fodder. Farmers were talking like, we may have to sell off the cattle and we'll have to leave the area. Now, one of our lady, Kerabai, she came to the bank and she was mortgaging gold. And I asked her that, why are you mortgaging your precious gold? So she said, don't you realize there is such a bad drought and 100 bundles of fodder, you have to spend, it's equivalent to 100 grams of gold. And I am mortgaging gold to buy a fodder for my animals. And then she questions me that in search of water, if we leave this area, with whom are you going to do banking? And I felt her question, as Jogin mentioned, I couldn't sleep that night. That with whom are you going to do banking if we leave this area in search of water? And I feel that today in this situation in climate change, we are at that threshold, right? So when Kerabai said that, and then we decided we need to do something, a lot of my team felt that will we be able to handle it? Our expertise in that. But then we decided, why don't we start a cattle camp where farmers can come at one place and we can make fodder and water available. And we did that. We got 14,000 animals at one place with 5,000 farmers and made that. And it went on for 1.5 years. Support was coming for these animals. But Kerabai used to sing the songs to create the hopes in the farmers, so that, water problem will be solved, we'll get the rains. But then we decided that, and she became our radio jockey also. But I'm just saying that I just asked her that, from where do you get this inspiration, Kerabai? And you know what she said? She said that I got married at the age of 13 and I got pregnant at the age of 14. We didn't have enough food. I used to feel hungry continuously. To forget the hunger, I started singing. And that's how she became a good singer. And today she's a radio jockey, never been to the school, but she makes the poem. Now, when you have such community leaders around you who are teaching you about water and fodder, I feel that, these lessons keeps you, not only just keeps you going, but gives you a lessons of lives, I find it. And so I always, and you know what Kerabai says, I always say that, from where do you get this inspiration and all that? So she very, very simply and humbly tells me that, you know what, you talk of bankers and everything, but for me, my courage is my capital. So these are the people who see the capital in a very different way. And I would always say that we talk about AIs, right? Which is so important, data, AIs, all these. Sometimes you also feel that the wisdom, which ancient intelligence, you can say, which Kerabai has, that also is so equally important. So I would say that these are the lessons which keeps you going, which makes you think about the success differently.
Yeah. I agree, ma'am. Very, very, very inspiring stories, you have to kind of, which you're sharing with us. Dr. Jogin, your message to the youth.
So, the first thing is, you've got to be in this for the longer term. So don't expect that in 3 months, you're going to find what you're looking for. It's going to be a 5-year journey, at least. And most people don't find their purpose until they're very, very old. So I've got a lot of people who are 21-year-old and 22 and say, like, I've not found yet my purpose. I'm like, well, you're on step 2 of a 100-step journey. So keep going. That's the only thing I say. And there are some people who find their purpose in, I've seen, and when you find it, you will know. Because there are some people who devote their lives to dogs, and some people who do to cats, and some people who do to geriatric care. And, I remember, and you will know, because there is a joy in your heart that will happen as soon as you connect, as you make the connects, right? The second thing I would say is, if you really want to find purpose, it does not come cheap. So don't expect to find purpose on the cheap. You will have to invest your own time. You will have to invest your own energy. And then you will have to, I'll give an example. There was a young person who used to keep sort of Parle-G biscuits in the car, and whenever he goes and whenever he sees a beggar, he would sort of give the Parle-G biscuits. And I would say, that's great, very good philanthropy, well done. But true philanthropy is when you part with something that's dear to you. Not something, this is great, it's a great start. But when you have your next McDonald's meal and it is sitting with you in your car, are you prepared to part with? I'm not suggesting we should give people McDonald's meals. That's not the point. But the point is, are you prepared to, I'm going to eat this. Oh, by the way, here you go. And I'm hungry, but here you go. That's the sacrifice that you would need to make. And an equivalent kind of sacrifice one would need to make as, an 18-year-old, you would say to them that, right? Are you willing to sacrifice something that you really want to eat right now and give it to somebody else? When you're 35 or 40, are you willing to sacrifice your vacation and give that donation to somebody else that says, I'm not going to take that vacation? So purpose doesn't come cheap, and it is a long-term process. And you have to be able to commit yourself to it. And the rewards are infinitely bigger than what you put into it. But it's a long-term process. You've got to have lots of patience for that.
I agree. I'm just going to open the questions to the audience, because we just have about a little less than 7 minutes. So I'm just going to open to the audience if there are any questions which they want to ask.
Lavanya, the questions will come in the chat box. If there are no questions in the chat box, then probably I can take the privilege of asking question to both Jogin and Chetna, which is, if you permit me, provided there are no questions in the chat box, Lavanya.
No, Shekhar, there are no questions as of now at the chat box. Yes, please go ahead and ask your first question.
Okay, Chetna and Jogin, first, thanks so much for joining the sessions today. It's a great session. And I always learn whenever I speak with Chetna Madam, whether it's part of this session or part of Deloitte sessions, I always learn many things from Chetna Madam, the inspiration side. But what inspires you to keep this going, Jogin and Chetna Madam? What is that makes you to keep going on this side? Of course, I have Madan in the next 5 minutes who's going to talk about different side. But I just want to ask both Mr. Jogin and Chetna, what is it that makes you to keep going on this?
So let me share with you that how younger population also in the villages, how do they see their future? I remember that in 2002, when one young girl who came to our bank, and she was not even, she had completed 7th standard, and Sarita, she had not even, she was not even 15 years old, but she said that she came in the summer and she said, I want to do a job in the bank for 2 months. And we were like, you are so young and what are you going to do? And she said, I don't want anything, but 2 months I will work. And I have finished my 7th standard. I want to go to high school, but we don't have a bus going to the high school from my village. And my parents may drop me out of the school. So I'll work for 2 months and you provide me the bicycle to go to school. Now this young girl, she knows that what she wants to continue her higher education. And it's not like she's saying that I cannot do, she's not complaining. She also finds the solution for her, that I will get the bicycle and I'll be able to go to school. So when I saw her, I felt like, she should be the advisor to, say, World Bank, UN agencies for sustainable development goals, right? That whatever she's saying, these are the solutions. And so Anyway, we started this with our foundation to provide the bicycles to girls to go to school. Now, when they got the bicycle, of course, she did continue her high school, but so many girls, young girls who got the bicycle, it was not just going to school, right? It was like a freedom ride for them. So they became a good athlete. And some of the girls like Reshma, when she was actually rearing buffaloes after coming from the school, but she became a part of the sports program, and she participated in marathon in state of Virginia. So when you see these young girls who otherwise would have rearing the buffaloes in the village, when they get an opportunity, they go to US, participate in marathons in those schools, compete with these white girls, come back and become a marathon coach. So those, when you see them and their success, it's like a climb, right? Otherwise, the other colleagues are rearing buffaloes. So Shekhar, I would say that when you see that, and then you get so much of inspiration and you feel like, why can't we have all these young girls, all these young boys who are looking for so many opportunities? A very small thing can change not only their lives, but they become a role model for millions of other young people. So that actually inspires me, Shekhar.
Thank you, Chetna, ma'am. In fact, it's absolutely great inspiration for every one of us. Thank you so much, ma'am. Jogin.
Yeah, so Shekhar, what I would say is, what keeps me going is once you realize that, nourishment of the soul is like an addiction. And once you have that, once you get that feeling, for example, I'll just give you my example. We did a lot of good work in social venture partners in the first 5 to 7 years. In the last 1.5 years, I've pulled back because I've been, trying to raise my funds for the startup, and we're getting a little bit busy. So I have pulled back a little bit. And now I find that I'm missing it. And I have to find time for that. So once you get that feeling of pure joy of helping somebody without expecting something in return, that's, you will keep coming back to that hit for getting that high again and again. And that's what keeps me going.
Hey, thank you, Jogin. Thanks a lot. I can keep on going on this session. It's a great inspirational session, even for me. As I said, I also a little bit had a grip, but I have other social side which I'm working with, the Jogin, which you know about it, which I keep sending WhatsApp messages to you quite often.
Yes. Whatever you do, that's fine.
Thanks a lot, Jogin. I have Madan Patki. Of course, I have Mr. Arvind Datta, the senior most lawyer, for his next session. So just bear with us for 2 minutes, sir. I have Mr. Madan Patki, who is a great friend of mine and Jogin, and then has been doing a lot of work on the social transformation side. So Madan, you can just, I'm not going to introduce Madan because if to introduce, I need another 10 more minutes, which I can't take. I don't have the privilege right now. So I would like you to speak for 5 minutes, Madan, on the social transformation, what you are embarking. And from a Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce perspective, after this discussion, I'll be having one separate discussion along with my senior vice president, where we can see how we can work together so that we can jointly make sure the society gets transformed, Madan. That's all I would like to make a commitment to you from a BCIC perspective, that we would keen to work with you after the session on one of those days, but Madan, we can meet and take it forward. But over to you, Madan, you can just fill in 5 minutes what you are doing with Madan.
Brilliant. Thank you, Shekhar and Jogin, Chetna. So nice to meet you, see you here. And thanks for a wonderful session. Shekhar, thanks for accommodating me at a last minute. We spoke last evening. And let me keep it specific to something that we are currently doing with the government of Karnataka, especially with the State Rural Livelihoods Mission. I'm here on behalf of the Department of Livelihoods. Essentially, I'm very passionate about entrepreneurs and ensuring that there is an uprising of mass entrepreneurship across the country, because I believe our youth who are entering the workforce now and in the future deserve a much better future in terms of their own economic opportunities. And I believe such opportunities will be created by entrepreneurs. So how do we create more entrepreneurs? In that context, I'm in multiple capacities, happy to be working with the government of Karnataka. And, I just want to share that there is a fascinating fair happening right now. Started yesterday and it's on till the 18th. It's called the Sanjeevani Saras, organized by the State Rural Livelihoods Mission, where about 700 entrepreneurs women entrepreneurs from across the country have converged onto National College grounds at Basangudi. I'll see if I can share my screen. I have a small, just to share the details with you. This affair is happening between 8th to the 18th. And there are about 350 stalls by various women entrepreneurs selling a variety of products and goods. And these women, as I mentioned, have converged from all across the country. So first of all, this is a call to all of us to kind of visit the fair and figure out how we can support these entrepreneurs for purchasing products from them. We are also organizing a CSR roundtable on the 12th of April between 11 to 1 p.m. The idea is to figure out how can CSR and corporates play a role in actively building capabilities of these entrepreneurs and helping them with market linkages. So if any one of you are, at the corporate level planning to buy gifts for the year, can you make a commitment that we will buy from SRLM so that these women entrepreneurs get the business, so on and so forth. So we're doing a corporate meet and a corporate engagement with SHGs again on the 12th. The third initiative that we are working on is to kind of help startups. And I know, Shekhar, you've started the startup incubation cell at BCIC, which is a terrific initiative. Love to partner. I've also roped in TIE Bangalore, where I'm the president, to help startups to engage with SHGs and women entrepreneurs. And how can startups really help in the growth of women enterprises? And we want to curate a cohort of 10 startups, really work with them, mentor them, and help them to get business from SRLM type entities so that it's a win-win for everybody. And lastly, to sensitize our MBA and BBA students on the lives of these women entrepreneurs, essentially resonating to what Chetna ma'am was talking about, that how do you expose our MBA students to the world out there? We are running a very interesting business plan competition for MBA students to come and interact with these women entrepreneurs, come out of the business plan, present it to a jury, and get to understand the lives of these women entrepreneurs. So I'll keep it short. Specifically, I think women enterprises, and we all know the abysmal rates of the labor force participation of women, and especially with entities like State Rural Livelihoods Mission that is doing a lot to increase the number of women enterprises and the scale of them. I think the next 10 days present a phenomenal opportunity, and I thank Shekhar for providing the opportunity just to showcase this to you at a larger level. Love to figure out, Shekhar, what we can do with BCIC and the members to really push the contours and the boundaries of creating a much more entrepreneurial society around us. So I'll again thank you for the time, and I'll share this set of initiatives with you that you can circulate it. But on behalf of the government of Karnataka, State Rural Livelihoods Mission, and TIE Bangalore, and several of us here, would love to invite you to participate and share the joy and celebrate these entrepreneurs.
Sure, madam. Thank you so much. As I said, me and my senior vice president Ravindran will catch up between the next week or week after that. Definitely BCS will be keen to work with you on the startup and providing all the support to you and then working with you. And the last but not the least, on behalf of Madan, I'm requesting all the participants here. You will be purchasing a lot of corporate gifts for your customers, vendors, and various people. What we are requesting, just commit 50,000 rupees, not beyond that, to purchase this corporate gift from some of these entrepreneurs, rural entrepreneurs, because you are giving a life. That's a request that I am placing with all the participants here on behalf of Madan and as a BCAC. Thank you, Madan. Thanks a lot. And definitely we'll be keen to meet you. And thanks to Jogin, thanks to Madam Chetna Sinha, and thanks to Lavanya for a fantastic moderation. Mr. BCAC team, can you just play some mementos, please, virtual mementos? Just only 1 minute virtual mementos. Since your name came last, I could not say Thank you, Madan. Since I could discuss it yesterday only, I brought your name. I could not place your name here, but you'll be getting the amount of
Really appreciate the
appreciation.
gesture.
Thank you, Madan. Thanks a lot, Lavanya. Thanks, Jogin.
Thank you.
Chetan.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
The presence of my another dear friend and my legal guide and legal guru, Mr. Aravind Dattar. I can keep on introducing him, one of the top-notch advocates of India, senior advocate, Supreme Court, man who argued various tremendous cases of importance, not only from the taxpayer side, but he also argued for the government side, for the supporting government in the case of Sahara. Man who wrote a book first book on central excise, which every excise person, every industrialist followed, was Mr. Aravind Dattar's book on central excise. He wrote a book on constitution. He had the privilege of what I would call always a privilege bestowed to him for editing Nani Palkiwala's, Kangan Palkiwala's income tax, which is a God books for us, for all the tax practitioners. Mr. Aravind Dattar had a privilege of editing it. And above all, he created a landmark of cases. The recent software case where the government is gone for a review petition is creation of his arguments along with various senior counsels. In addition to that, Mr. Aravind Dattar is also part of a Palkiwala Foundation, which organizes regular lectures on India's legal system in Chennai as well as in Mumbai. Being a lawyer, I had a great interactions with him. Man with not only thorough knowledge, but absolute humility. And that's what brings people like me closer to Aravind Dattar. And this session, I can just tell it was decided in Delhi airport in a span of minutes, where when me and Aravind Dattar met in the Delhi airport, because I met him after a gap of 2 years, thanks to Corona, I could not meet him. But at the Delhi airport, we met him for only 2 minutes. And I requested Aravind Dattar, can you, sir, speak a session on BCIC business? It is conclave. Without, he said, Shekhar, only tell me the date. I just want to see my calendar. I told him the date. He saw his calendar was free. Immediately he said yes, and he blocked the calendar. And that's where Mr. Aravind Dattar always comes for our support. Thank you so much, sir. I have no words to describe your support to us. And he has been a great supporter of BCIC whenever we invited him for any sessions, and he has been participating in it. Over to you, sir. I don't want to stand between you and the audience. His topic today is the most relevant, India's impact of India's legal system on foreign investment in India. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Shekhar. It was indeed a great pleasure suddenly seeing you at Delhi airport. And by a coincidence, I first said yes. Then the NANIPA, we have a annual international arbitration conference, which was scheduled for 2nd April, but which had to be shifted to 9th April for some reason. And now I just finished the conference, and I'm once again near Delhi airport. I've checked into a
thank you, sir.
I checked into a nearby airport hotel so that I could address all my friends from Bangalore. And, yeah, because I didn't want to miss this opportunity.
Sir, today we have more than 200 delegates are participating across India, sir.
I'm so happy. And then when I saw the topic, this is something which was always been bothering me for a long time. You see, apart from me arguing cases and so on, I used to always wonder, because you and I have done so many cross-border taxation. We know that many of the people are reluctant to invest in India. They are going away from India. Of course, recently we had a huge boost of investments, a lot of investments in startups, which is a very hearty event. But I think that nobody can deny that the lack of increase in the manufacturing proportion of the GDP is a worrying factor. You still have substantial imports coming from other countries, and even basic goods are imported from China, Thailand, Vietnam, and so on and so forth. Now, when you mention about Indian legal system, we have got this concept of China plus one. People are now saying that, look, they must have one other manufacturing source other than China itself. Why not India? And you'll find that in the last 1 year, not many people have come into India for manufacturing. You have got the PLI scheme, which is again highly regulated, highly bureaucratic. And what some people tell me is that, look, the scheme is good, but then we don't know after 5 years, 6 years, what is going to be the possible litigation, whether they will give it, deny it, and so on and so forth. Because earlier the track record in many of these government incentive schemes is after the scheme starts for 7, 8 years, there is some change. Then they say there's no problem, there's promises, estoppel, all those confusion come. In my view, in some experience of 4 decades, the ease of doing business consists of three parts: ease of starting a business, ease of running a business, and ease of closing a business. So just as a person is born, lives and dies, a company also takes birth. Many companies expect to reach heights of success. Many don't, some do. That's the running phase. And then eventually you have to have cases where sometimes the industry doesn't survive. There are various reasons the company has to shut down. Now we have to focus on all these three parts. Since I've got only 15 minutes at my disposal, I'll just be brief. Now, as far as ease of doing, I've done a lot of study on this in my own. I keep bothering. What bothers me is you buy a blood pressure monitor, it is made in Vietnam. You buy some other gadget, it is either made in China. I bought a refrigerator recently, it's made in Thailand. And these things bother. Why can't these things be made in India? In fact, I was talking to a very eminent chartered accountant on the flight to, the same day I met you, that night I was flying to Chennai. And I was surprised to know that the balloon market for balloons is 1100 crores in India. And 98% of all the balloons are imported from China, Thailand or Sri Lanka. Now, this is really shocking. Why can't we make balloons in this factory? And the biggest importer is from Chennai, who imports 30-35%. And he says that there's so much of headache in setting up a factory. So these are the points, feedback we should get to understand why we're doing. And just take some statistics. We want to be a 5 trillion economy, definitely. It's a very good thing. Unfortunately, the COVID setback put us back, but we are on the path to going to 5 trillion. But you should see the strides taken by other countries and then see that how much of catching up you have to do. Shekhar, I'll just give you a few statistics. If you see the Fortune 500, Fortune magazine of sometime in January, which gave the usual Fortune 500 companies, I was startled to learn that in 2002, China had only 9 companies in the Fortune 500. And by 2021, 127 of the first 500 companies in the world are Chinese. They have overtaken US. US is about 118 or 120 companies. So between China and the US, more than 50% of the Fortune 500 companies are just in these two countries. What a leap they have made. I mean, we may talk about democracy, etc., but I'm just saying in terms of economic output, they have become now a 15 trillion economy. As the US is 21 trillion, they are 15 trillion. This is the kind of leap they're making. Another startling statistic which I found was Louis Vuitton, which is a fashion house, Louis Vuitton, LV bags and so on and so forth. They have a turnover of more than Indian Oil. So one of the largest Indian companies, its turnover is less than a fashion giant of Europe. So this is the kind of catching up we have to do. So we have to really ponder why we have to promote manufacturing in India. And for me, when I talk to so many clients, so many people, they don't want incentive. They just want certainty. They want to, when they start setting up a business, they want minimum amount of regulations, permissions, etc. to start. Then when they run the business, there are two aspects. One is the taxation aspect and the regulatory aspect. As you know, we must have something to say that there'll be some certainty in tax. There will not be constant changes, constant disallowances and so on and so forth. So that's a very, very big worry for them as far as this. Fortunately, the present government is not, there are of course some retrospective amendments, but not major retrospective amendments have taken place. In fact, Arun Jaitley called the retrospective amendment as a tax terrorism. That was his statement in Parliament when the Vodafone amendment came. But that's a big worry for the people. Then as far as GST is concerned, there are so many points which are really affecting people. So unless we put our attention, and I was telling somebody, I said, have you asked a feedback? Have you given a questionnaire to the industry? What are the difficulties you face and how can the government solve them? There's no point saying reduce the taxes. We can't, we require the money. But at least if you make the regulations easier, it'll be nice. I was talking to another person. I was told that in India, 93% of the direct taxes collected is by TDS. 93% is by TDS. So this entire litigation, so that's coming automatically. So you've got these multiple amendments and sections and changes and rules and so on for just 7%. Look at section 14A and rule 8D. How many changes you have made just on this sector? Look at the charitable trust sector. So much of over-regulation. So if you want to attract system in India, for ease of doing business, ease of starting a business, I think state governments have a lot of role to play because under the constitution, all the permissions, land, etc. comes on the state list. So that's the state part. As far as running a business is concerned, the larger responsibilities from the central government. So that in terms of tax incentives, not tax, just tax certainty. And I tell you, corruption is not an issue that happens in China, Vietnam, everybody knows it. So they're not worried about that. They're more worried about tax certainty and on the regulatory part. Today, a well-sized company has to file 115 compliances throughout the year on company law alone. apart from, then they've got SEBI compliance, this compliance, that compliance. So if those can be simplified, that there's some kind of a conscious attention can be made. And the other thing in running a business is, I have, ever since I was a junior of Mr. Ramamani, right from the days when the charitable trust amendments was made and you could not invest except in those 5 things, the attitude, whether it's GST taxes, because there are 2 or 3% tax evaders who are doing bogus transactions, you modify the law to catch those 2%, but don't realize the collateral damage you're doing to 98%. We must accept the fact that today GST is 15 lakh crores per year. The report is the GST evasion about 40,000 crores. That's 2% of the total. Now, for the sake of catching this 2%, how many compliances, regulations, restrictions, e-bill, this bill you're doing for what? So if you have a larger understanding, look, we have to become a 5 trillion economy, we have to become a 10 trillion economy. In that case, you must really let go of this philosophy that no leakage should be there, nobody should violate the law. This is bound to happen, people are going to be there, just leave it. So as far as ease of running a business is concerned, my personal view is we require drastically a lot of simplification of tax laws. I'll tell you a simple point. There's a big, large car manufacturer's case coming in the Supreme Court. In fact, every large car manufacturer has got multiple litigations. And one car manufacturer told me that his turnover in India is 1.8% of his global turnover is from India, but 94% of his litigation is in India. And he says that, look, for selling us 10,000, 20,000 cars, why should I get into this kind of attitude? Now, if you're going to get this kind of problem, then you're going to really scare away people. I'll give you a simple example. Look at the damage that we do to ourselves. Nokia had set up a beautiful plant of SEZ. That was the only mobile phone company did not go to China. They came here, and I'm told at the request of Arun Shourie, they had a lot of things, and they set up a wonderful SEZ outside Chennai in Sri Perumbudur. I happened to do the case. Suddenly, out of the blue, in 2013-14, they get a sales tax demand saying that all your exports of 25,000 crores are deemed to be interstate sales. And a sales tax officer came, he asked for some records. They gave some sample records. He had to meet some revenue targets. He said that the entire 25,000 crores are interstate sales and levied 12% tax and demanded 2,500 crores. Luckily, we got a stay in the High Court. Then that matter went on. And again, there is further litigation. Ultimately, what happened, apart from the income tax case, Nokia shut down. And you can take it from me that any company from Finland will think twice because they'll have this Nokia experience in their mind. Now, just to collect, now just imagine what happened to that sales tax officer. Was he taken to task? If 25,000 crores has come into India, we gave the statements from the banks where all the foreign exchange has come, they got 3 export awards, and you say every single export is an interstate sale. Now, this is the kind of damage you do. The Vodafone amendment, retrospective, it created huge amount of negative things for India without attracting any tax. So I think if you have a clear perception that, look, we have to attract investment, don't have this regulated production linked incentive. You do this, get 20 approvals, and then you get a 5% increment, which will be subject to audit and so on and so forth. That is not going to work. We should make the soil of India less toxic to investments. People should on their own want to come and invest in India and this. Now, just to give you further statistics, you take Vietnam. I know friends of mine who have got garment factories who have shifted and gone to Vietnam. Today, Vietnam is exporting $39 billion of garments. I'm not talking, we make quota issues and all that, but 39 billion. Our exports are 6 billion. Look at the difference what Vietnam is doing. There's a recent article in the Economic and Political Weekly. In 2010, we are having the same exports in mobile phones. Today, they are 11 times exporting more than India. So these are all things which should put us to thinking, what happens? Why does a person go to Vietnam? What is that? What is Vietnam offering which India doesn't offer? What is that X factor or XYZ factors that make people want to invest in Thailand or Vietnam? And believe me, the labor is not cheap. I've checked the data. The labor is on par. There's no that India is labor expensive or Vietnam is labor cheap. It's all on par. But it's just the regulation, the taxes, etc., which really will. For example, you take our GST. Now you say GST is one nation, one tax. all the things will be clubbed together. Now I get input credit for goods, I get input credit for services. Suddenly in 2019, you make a retrospective amendment and say that hereafter, there'll be no refund of input tax credit. Now, in many, many cases, you have an inverted duty structure. The output duty is 5%, the input duty is 12%. Your refund is a cost. You have the GST is a cost. You become completely uncompetitive. We lost the case in the Supreme Court. We showed data to the Supreme Court that a large construction company is building the Bombay Metro will have to pay 156 crores more. All the people making artificial jewelry, bangles and so on, they're shutting down, going to China or Vietnam. So these are the systems which problem. And what other thing bothers me of our legal system is everybody thinks in silos. Income tax thinks how to revenue maximize its own tax, direct tax revenue. GST thinks how to maximize my GST revenue. But you don't realize that by taking steps which may give you 1,000 crores more, have you thought of the economic repercussions on the industry? There are people who simply shut down and go away to Vietnam. Today, virtually no toys are made in India. We did this Fun Schools case. Again, we lost. What is the controversy? Are the Fun School board games, are they a toy? Are they a puzzle? Are they a game of skill? For the sake of few crores, why do you do it? Ultimately, the factory shut down. 180 people lost their jobs. Now all the toys are made in China. So again and again and again, this is the repeated thing that you keep focusing on your own target revenues, not thinking of the national picture. And I've always said that it is wrong to think of what is the direct tax. You just think that if that industry functions, I always believe Section 10A was the biggest factor in promoting software exports. You may have lost some income tax, but look at the number of jobs you have created. You have made India the software superpower in the world. So if you forego the tax, if you make India an attractive destination, what will be the positive result that will come? Please think of that. That should be a kind of a simulated thinking and not just having this thing. Now, I happened to do the Kane case. We had this bilateral investment treaty. Now, what was the problem in Kane? I mean, this is an example of how we function. Article 3 and Article 5 of most treaties talk of, 5 and 7 talk of the fair and equitable treatment and what is called the expropriation clause. Now, if you make a retrospective amendment from 1962, it violates the FET clause. There is a case of Poshok versus Mongolia, where the Mongolian government increased the tax on gold because gold suddenly shot up and Russian companies made bumper profits. So they increased the rate of tax. That was held to be completely within the sovereign right of taxation because they said there can be no guarantee that tax will be the same. There is a very important observation there saying that if the law was changed retrospectively, it would be a different story. So there was clear jurisprudence that retrospective taxation could be. Now, Vodafone, you simply lost the case immediately. You never realized that you have signed a bilateral treaty with England. There's an arbitration clause. Same thing with Kane. In 2006, the investment has come. They have got FIPB permission. And then suddenly in 2012, you say that that is a tax avoidance, tax evasion measure. Now, when you come to the new bilateral investment treaty, you have excluded taxation and you have put the rider that you can't go for an arbitration unless you exhaust all the remedies up to Supreme Court. Now, earlier 100 countries signed or 70 countries signed the BITs. Today, virtually no important nation has signed our BIT because we excluded tax. I think to myself, why can't the government be so confident and say, yes, please invest in India. I assure you that my laws will be fair and equitable. I assure you there will be no... What's the scare? What's the point in saying that since we lost the Vodafone case, we'll exclude taxation from any arbitration? See, if you're a private company, will you say, I won't sign an arbitration clause? You must say, yes, I'll be fair. Let's go to arbitration if dispute comes. So whether it's the taxation laws, it's the GST laws or the bilateral investment treaty laws, now these create a huge amount of impressions abroad. When I go for seminars and so on, everyone says, what's your BIT clause? How can you exclude taxation? There's no point saying Brazil has excluded this country. You want investments in India? People should know that when they invest in India, they have got a remedy of arbitration. They don't have to come to India and spend 10 years in our courts. They can go for BIT arbitration and settle. And I have spoken at seminars. There's a myth that all these BITs are against developing countries. I'm sorry. There's a wonderful article where he has analyzed 32. There are totally 32 BIT cases on taxation. 32. 17 have gone in favor of the state and 15 have gone in favor of the SSC. So it is wrong to say that the whole system is geared against developing countries. It helps the white people, helps the developed countries. That is statistically wrong. See? And wherever the country has been unfair, whether it's Peru or Russia, whatever it is, the law has gone against them. So I think if you want to be a world superpower, then you have to think like a world superpower. You can't think of being a world superpower, but still worry that I will not allow this to happen. I will not allow some 1% change to take place. I will not allow my income tax case to go against me. These are the major problems as far as we are concerned. So if I would say that if we have to have legal systems which attract investment, first thing is ease of starting a business, where you must have a network with state governments, may have like a credit rating, have a rating that which state gives the fastest way of setting up an industry, that kind of a possibility. As a running business is concerned, you tell the thing that there is a very clear certainty. There is no question of amending, retrospectively reopening the assessments. And just one example comes to my mind. Look at the authority for advance rulings. You and I know how well these, what kind of prestige that institute had when Justice Ranganathan was there, Justice Kadri was there. You know, these Supreme Court judges, they had such wonderful judgments were delivered at the AR, and people would come, go there, get the decision in 1 year and walk away. Today, what has happened? Dispute got backlogged, you didn't appoint people. Now you had a board for advance ruling consisting of commissioners. Now, will anybody think that you're going to get a possible verdict on that? See, one example I'm giving, like putting this advance ruling, now a foreign investor earlier who came with a new project, he would straight away go for an AR ruling and get it, whether it was Ericsson or it was Dassault, whatever it is. But I'm asking as a chartered accountant, will you advise anybody to go for an advance ruling? No. And look at the law. You say you pay 10 lakh fees and the decision of the AR will not be binding. That is the amendment which we have challenged with area. So these are all the points where you just don't want to lose a single case. You don't want to have anything against this thing. Then you will not get the investments. So I would urge the government to make a law which is fair, which is equitable. Don't have this kind of systems where everything is pro-revenue. It will be highly counterproductive. People will not come to India. Don't forget that the manufacturing ratio to GDP, which was 16, has now come down to 14. Manufacturing is not taking off. I know for certain because I deal with people on a day-to-day basis. Unless we drastically change, we will not. As somebody rightly put it, that if you continue to do the same thing, you will continue to have the same results. If you want to have different results, then you have to, whether it's a personal life. I heard some lectures about personal, the two gentlemen, the lady and gentleman were speaking very well. So unless you want to have if you want to transform your country, then your method of doing business also has to completely transform. So with these few words, I'll thank the organization. Thank you. It was happy coincidence that I met you and I got this chance to share my thoughts with all the participants. I wish you all the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. In fact, when you're speaking, an idea came into my mind. Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce released a lot of research publications in the last year as well as in the current year. We released 2 reports on direct access reform, what needs to be done. We released a report on capital gains tax reform. We also released a report on what the government RBI should do on economy with the considering the challenges what we had. We released a report. Fortunately, some of our recommendations were accepted. Let me be very honest. You can ask me, Shekhar, how can it, but God knows, our recommendations, some of our recommendations have been accepted with the government. We are also coming with a new report on human capital development for Karnataka. So we are a lot of research reports we do, but when you're talking about it, I had a thought in my mind, and probably I'll be doing the report, I'll be seeking your help as a forward as well as giving a perspective. What the government should do to improve the legal system and taxation system to attract more foreign investments into India. We would like to commission that report and definitely would like to seek your inputs because my term is getting over in BCIC by July 30th. Before my term gets over, though my successor is a great friend of mine, he's also like me, but definitely I would like to do this report before my term ends with your forward, and I would like to submit to the government because as a role of, we always believe the role of the chamber is just not making representations, but be a constructive change for a agent for a change. That's what we believe it. And definitely I seek your support on that side. We'll be working out a report. Some of your strategies, what you're throwing is a mind-boggling. I never expected the balloon industry are depending on China. I know Sivakasi has been migrated to China. I know that very well. All the firecrackers has been moved to China, but I know the balloon industry also moved to China. So thank you so much, for your insights.
Yeah, I would suggest you, I've been suggesting to some people in Delhi that, in any business, you do a market survey, you find out what the customer wants. Now, if we are attracting investments, the people who are investing into India are our customers, are our market.
Correct.
I was thinking, your BCIC, why don't you think of a questionnaire? Write a questionnaire to top industries in Bangalore. What do they expect from India? What do they don't have? Nobody does it. So I told one very senior civil servant, I told a very senior person, I said, look, our approach is this. The market wants a particular kind of TV. You will not give that. You will say, my TV is 39.8 inches. It will have this color, it will have that color. If you want it, you come. You will never become a TV giant in that case. You must go to the market, see what the market wants, and then fill that need. And I'll share with you the study. We are making a comparative study of the systems of China, Vietnam, Thailand, and India. What bothers me a lot? Why does a person make a blood pressure thing in Vietnam? Why not in India?
Absolutely, sir. So definitely we'll be working out a study, and definitely we seek your input. And if you have a time and if you agree with it, probably like have a forward also on that.
I'm too small a person for a forward. You get from some senior people, but
for me, you are the best person, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, participants. Before we go to Murali for
can I just sign off because I have to?
Yes, sir. You can sign off only 1 second.
That electronic memento.
Yes.
Have a nice week.
Thank you, Murali, for your vote of thanks and conclusion. Thanks a lot, sir. I know very well you got pressing for time.
My flight's at 8:30, so
yes, sir, I know that. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you so much.
Shekhar, good evening, viewers. What a wonderful and great evening we had today. Starting at 4 o'clock, we had a first panel talking on navigating in difficult times with Mr. Sanjay Sharma, CEO, MTR Foods Private Limited, Mrs. Vibha Padalkar, MD and CEO, HDFC Life Insurance Company Limited, Mr. Sanjeev Sharma, CEO and MD, ABB India Limited, and being very well moderated by Dr. L. Ravindran, Senior Vice President, BCIC, and MD and CEO, WealthMax Group of Companies. And what a great panel, amazing leadership panel we had during this particular discourse. People talked about preserving and protecting the resources, digital transformation in this COVID times, supply chain management and new digital disruptions, government support in time, and all the panelists were optimistic of the future in the post-COVID world. And second, the next panel was on leadership transition and transformation. What's stalwarts in finance, Mr. Mohan Das Pai, Mr. Suresh Senapati, Mr. Jatin Dalal, and very well moderated by our president, Mr. K.R. Shekhar. People talked about transformation and leadership transition in their long careers. It was fun-filled and it was inspiring to all the viewers and people like me. Next panel was on social venture partnership. We had Mr. Jogin Desai, founder and CEO, E-System Research Private Limited, Mrs. Chaitanya Sinha, founder, chairperson, Mandesi Mahila Sahakari Bank, and very well moderated by Lavanya Pachisia. Also in the panel was Mr. Madan Parikh. And we could see the happiness and contentment in the faces of the panelists, highlighting the sense of understanding the purpose of life while contributing for society, towards society. And finally, we just heard the legal luminary, Mr. Arvind Datta, talking on impact of Indian legal system on Indian economy. His tips on ease of starting the business, doing the business, and exiting the business is quite noteworthy. And his concern on making these retrospective tax amendments causing impairment in inviting investments into India is also worth prodding upon. So while I thank all the panelists here, my thanks also goes to the vast number of viewers. We had more than 200 viewers joining us today. My thanks goes to each and every one of them, and all the back support and support we got from iBento, the people here in Secretariat, Mr. Prithvi, Mr. Niranjan, Mr. Purushot, and everybody who here and who made this two-day event tech-free, without any glitches. And my thanks goes to Mr. K.R. Shekhar in guiding us in doing this particular business leadership conclave. So thank you very much. Have a nice evening and see you all once more in one more webinar or seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.